Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. Happy Hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube, Twitter. Hello, everybody. How are everyone doing out there on this Friday edition of the show? Glad to have you guys on board the show today. Phillies, another embarrassing loss last night, because that's all we need in our lives. Another way for every Phillies fan to be completely embarrassed by their team. Eagles, preseason action tonight. But is anybody really even playing of consequence? Well, we'll find out today during the show, because there are certain people that are going to play tonight and they might be playing for roster spots. Plus, we'll cover the latest in the NFL and more right here on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, or if you have the 97.3 ESPN mobile app on your phone, you would have gotten the alert that it's Happy Hour Friday. And I gave you guys a list of local establishments in Atlantic County that you can go out and watch football at this year. So if you got the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, or follow me at Josh Hennig on Twitter, at 973 on Twitter and YouTube. You can go check out that article right now over at 973 ESPN.com. Maybe get your Happy Hour Friday going a little early for me. That's my gift from me to you guys this weekend. Comment, let us know your thoughts on the full list. And as always, we love to hear from you guys throughout the show. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You can message the show live through the 973 ESPN mobile app throughout the day. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Download the app for free. Customize all your alerts on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, high school sports, and more right there at the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. As always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter. I will get to the Eagles stuff because, as I said last night on game night, there's so much just negative mojo right now when it comes to the Phillies. It's absolutely embarrassing. But I can't get away from the embarrassing mojo that's Phillies, because, you know, the Phillies did it to us. Okay? The Phillies did it to all of us. They pulled us in. They dragged us in. They put us in a situation where we thought that they were going to be able to do something this year. Because having talent in sports isn't enough. A lot of people have talent. You don't get to play professional ball if you don't have talent. But it's what you do with that talent that makes a difference. And, oh man, it is absolutely embarrassing how I feel like this entire team has lied to us. They've manipulated us. They have taken us down a road that we thought was going to be different, that we thought they could do something. And part of it started with the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, they traded for Kyle Gibson. They got Ian Kennedy. They brought in Freddie Galvis. And you thought, all right, maybe this team could do something. Then they go on that 8-game winning streak. They take first place in the division. And you thought, you know what? Maybe we can do this. Maybe they can do what they haven't done in 10 years, which is reach the postseason. And then they completely dropped the ball. And last night was just another example of the abomination that is the Philadelphia Phillies. You don't go out there each and every night and lose the way that they have done. With the talent that they have, currently losing 3 straight. Unless you are just that stupid. Let me tell you something. The Phillies almost tied the game last night because the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen is that garbage. Think about it. Before the 9th inning, they were down 8-2. And the whole thing started on a fielder's choice that got the runs coming in. Before that, it was 8-2. Now, look, I don't think you should be able to overcome 8-2 every night. I'm not crazy. I'm not ridiculous. But you lost 7-4 to the Rays, 3-1 to the Rays. The Padres game you should have won, you lost 4-3 in 10 innings. And the 3 games you lost in Arizona previously, you scored 2 runs in all of those games. So before the 9th inning last night, you scored 2 runs in every game against the Diamondbacks recently. And I'm not supposed to call you out? May I remind you that this organization made a mistake. What mistake was that? Well, this was the head of baseball operations, Dave Dombrowski, back in July, before they had the trade deadline. Take a listen. This is from the John Clark podcast.
Our weaknesses, our defense is not our strength. We hope that we outscore that part, our defense, with the lineup that we put out there.
Hold on. They say they're going to outscore their defense.
Actually, the back end of the bullpen, of course, has struggled at times. It's been a little bit better recently, but it's a situation where I think we have the ability to get it together. Some of the guys have started to throw better. So, for example, a premium piece for us out there, a guy like Ranger Suarez, who wasn't with us earlier in the year. He's an important part. Archie Bradley's all of a sudden starting to throw the ball much better. So I think that's an area that, for us, has struggled at times, but is getting a little bit better.
Let's play that beginning part again. Dave, what was that about, outscoring the defense?
Our weaknesses, our defense is not our strength. We hope that we outscore that part, our defense, with the...
Okay, so the idea was back in July they were going to outscore the defense. Then he kind of doesn't get back to that. He just keeps rambling on about the bullpen, right? So where's the offense? How are they outscoring? What did Dave Dombrowski think back in July about the Phillies batting lineup?
When we've had our everyday lineup in there, we've scored runs, but we just haven't been together very much. But when we're together, we have had the ability to put some runs up on the board. And I think we're in a position that when we can put them all together, and if we can keep them on the field together, that we have a chance to be in a position where we score runs, hopefully get on a little bit of a streak and try to win the division.
The problem is, Mr. Dombrowski, that whether you had the team all together or not on the field, the only guy you were missing for stretch of the time was Rhys Hoskins, and you couldn't score without him. It's insane that Rhys Hoskins has become that important to this lineup. Every hitter on this team should be ashamed of themselves that a 247 hitter is leading the team in RBI, has 27 home runs for the 3rd time in 5 seasons of his career. A guy who has a .334 on base percentage, which is actually the lowest of his career for Hoskins, at 28 years old. That you take that guy out, and all of a sudden, you have trouble scoring. It's an utter embarrassment that you have 2 league MVP award winners in McCutchen and Harper. You have the so-called best hitting catcher in baseball who should have never been an all-star, JT Realmuto. You have Gene Segura, who has batted .230 since the all-star break. Didi Gregorius, who looks like he's completely lost his way. You're hoping Freddie Galvis picks up the slack from Gregorius. Hoping, praying, wishing on a star. You're not even hoping for the best for more. You're not even preparing for the worst. You're hoping for hope's sake that this team will wake up. And from night to night, Girardi is changing the lineup and changing the lineup and changing the lineup because at the end of the day, he doesn't know what to do anymore. Girardi was the manager of a team that won the World Series. He coached some super talented Yankee teams. I think he looks at this Phillies team and he doesn't understand what's wrong. I think he is completely and utterly lost. I think if Girardi could just end the season right now, I think there's a part of him that would say, just end it now. Put me out of my misery. Because remember, the Phillies were supposed to have the easiest schedule in baseball, the most games versus teams that are worst records in baseball, right? But guess what? You've lost 4 straight to Arizona. It was one thing when you lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers, one of the best teams in baseball. It was another thing when Wheeler happened to have a rough start versus the Reds. It's another thing when you lose 4 straight to one of the worst teams in the National League. And before the 9th inning last night, all you could do is muster 2 runs. But we were sold wolf tickets. We were sold a bill of goods. We were given a charade. We were given a dog and pony show, whatever you want to call it. The head of baseball operations for this team said that this team could outscore their defensive issues. He said when they're all together that they can hit the ball enough to win the division. And I see a team on the field that does not know what they're doing. I don't know if Rhys Hoskins is really that meaningful or these guys are really just that lost. But whatever the reason is, it's unacceptable. You don't have this talent on paper and then just suddenly forget how to play baseball. You gave me an 8-game winning streak. You gave me 2 trades at the trade deadline. You told me that the offense is going to be good enough to carry us. Well, guess what? The pitching is ironed out and fixed, but the hitters have forgotten how to hit the ball. It's an utter joke. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Happy Hour Friday edition. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We are also live on YouTube and Twitter where you can watch the show. Join the conversation there as well here on 97.3 ESPN. And, you know, before we get to the Eagles stuff, I got to follow up with the other side, okay, of the exasperating Philadelphia sports spectrum. Not the literal spectrum that used to be in Philadelphia. No, I mean like the general like environment for those of you who didn't spend enough time in English class to pay attention. The other exasperating thing in Philadelphia that frankly wants to drive you to drink is this whole Ben Simmons Sixer situation. So it was just the other day that we were being told the Sixers are going to work things out and settle with Ben Simmons so he can come back to camp. Then, out of nowhere, Shams Charania of The Athletic and Stadium decides to just drop this bomb on us this morning that apparently both sides want the same thing, a trade, according to Shams. Quote, the Sixers started conversations a few weeks before the draft with teams on which offer might be best. At the end of the day, They don't have a deal done, but are continuing to talk to teams. Shams goes on to say, what I would expect to be the climax of the situation to happen close to the training camp, that's when there's going to be pressure. Are you going to want to bring Ben Simmons back to camp? Are you going to want to try to get something done before camp? That's when we'll see all this stuff climax. Now, we have heard tons of rumors that the Timberwolves are trying to get Ben Simmons still, and that the Warriors would still like Ben Simmons. And after seeing the Bulls, Blazers, Cavs trade today, I think it's become more and more obvious that the Blazers are less likely to trade Lillard than the Sixers are to trade Ben Simmons. Because you don't bring in Larry Nance Jr. if you're planning on trading Lillard for Simmons. Because Larry Nance Jr. does some of the things that Simmons would do for a team like Portland. Larry Nance Jr. is going to guard 3 through 5 pretty easily. He's going to be a great rebounder. He's going to be a very good defensive player. He's going to be a guy that is going to be a great support for McCollum and Lillard because they don't really have great interior defense. They don't have great athletes defensively as Portland. So bringing a guy like Nance makes sense. And they give up a guy in Derek Jones who obviously was a disappointment, a guy they thought they could be more, but he hasn't turned out. And, of course, the Cavs get Lauri Markkanen, probably a sign that the Kevin Love era is coming to an end sooner than later. That 3-way deal went down today. And as I see the Ben Simmons stuff continuing to swirl, I understand that if you are the 76ers, you don't want to give up Ben Simmons for nothing. But the point that Shams made in this is very important. Is that, do you really want to bring Ben Simmons to training camp? Are you really going to act like the entire offseason didn't happen, that you were trying to trade him, that you were having talks, that there were conversations had? You know, I used the divorce analogy before when it came to Ben Simmons and the Sixers. I said, listen, back in July when Rich Paul and Daryl Morey and company all talked about Ben Simmons' future, you don't have conversations about having a separation, having a divorce, if you aren't already mentally on that path. And as of right now, you could argue that Ben Simmons and the Sixers are separated. They're not in the same building together. They're not with each other. They're working out separately. So now you're going to tell Ben Simmons to move back into the house, even though you're still talking divorce potentially. How's that going to go over? How's that tension going to be cut with a knife? How you going to handle that? Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey, Elton Brand. I understand you don't want to give Ben Simmons up for something less. But the majority of trades out there, you trade somebody and you got to give up something that may or may not be what you want. When the Lakers traded Shaq, when the Clippers traded Chris Paul, there's numerous situations where you sometimes got to make a trade, not because it's the best trade, but because sometimes you just got to get the deal done. Let's be realistic. When the Lakers traded Shaq, or when the Sixers traded Allen Iverson, remember Andre Miller? You're not always getting equal value, or what you think is equal value. At the end of the day, Ben Simmons is worth something to other NBA teams because they want him. But waiting on Damian Lillard to decide if he wants to leave Portland or not is not a strategy. It's being overly hopeful. Remember, the Lakers traded Shaq for Caron Butler, Brian Grant, Lamar Odom, and 2 draft picks. One became Jordan Farmar, and one became Ronaldus Sabutis. Because we all remember Ronaldus Sabutis. Only one of those players really had an impact on the Lakers getting back the championship for, and that was Lamar Odom. And that came through a lot of maturity and a lot of rough times for the Lakers. Think about the Iverson trade. Yeah, remember he was traded to Denver, and the Sixers got who exactly in return? That's right, Andre Miller, Joe Smith, who was completely washed at that point, a first-round pick that became DeQuan Cook, and another first-round pick that became the infamous Patiri Koponen. Allen Iverson is one of the greatest scorers of all time. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the greatest centers of all time. And you got lesser value in return for both of them. Why am I supposed to believe that you're going to get better value than that for a guy who is a 3-time All-Star and a 2-time NBA first-team defensive team? Ben Simmons is not better than Shaq. He's nowhere close to Allen Iverson. So why do the Sixers think they have to get better value than those trades did? Let me know what you guys think. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Be on the conversation, 609-403-0973. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter. We can watch the show and join the conversation. Of course, this hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in EHT next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. Still to come, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City at 2:40 today. Also, Pete Thompson is going to join us a little bit earlier today at 3 p.m. here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew the Checo, Football at 4, previewing the Eagles preseason Game 3 tonight and what that means for the final roster cuts ahead of this Tuesday at 4 p.m. Bob Wankel will try to answer some questions about the Phillies and their future this season and next season moving forward with the Reese Hoskins done for the year. And, of course, Jeff Kerr. More football talk coming up at 5:25, CBS Sports NFL writer. And I'm here with you guys here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at Josh Hennig on Twitter. Let's hang out. Let's have a good time. Let's throw a couple back. I can't while I'm on the air, but you could do it for me out there listening, because between the Phillies and the Sixers, I'm exasperated.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles finish the 2021 preseason tonight against the New York Jets.
Takes the snap. Here comes the rush. Let's go. Complete into the end zone. Touchdown, Tucker.
Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 7:30. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow at 973 ESPN. You can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. Text board. Also, message the show directly through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Just like over on the text board, Big Daddy chimes in from Dover, says, Phillies sold us Wolf tickets. Yeah, man. Totally. I agree with you. But we have someone disagrees on the text board. Texter chimes in. No name on it, but he says, Phillies didn't fool you or the fans. You all did that to yourselves. The Braves are simply the best and most talented team in the division, period. I'm a Mets fan, and even when we held first place spot for 100 days, I still knew that August was going to be where the cream rises to the top. Well, Mr. Mets fan, here's a couple things. One, it's been well documented. Anybody who's listened to us here on 97.3 ESPN, I said it back in June and July that I thought if you asked me to pick a team to win the division, I said it was going to be the Mets. I never denied that. I'm sorry, the Braves. I never denied that. But when Acuna went down, that was a huge loss for them. Now, they did recalibrate and reformat their outfield and try to make their team better. But there's no reality where the Braves pitching staff is that much better than the Phillies. So to say they're the most talented team in the division, period, is a lack of objectivity on your part, Mr. Mets fan. And frankly, if DeGrom and Syndergaard were healthy, the Mets would probably still be winning this division. Because the Mets' biggest problem right now is their pitching. They still have some hitters. But let me tell you something. The Braves, they have a good team. But they're not the most talented team, period, in the division. That's an extreme. Yes, I know the cream rises to the top. I've heard that phrase since I was in high school. You know, you go through practices, the coach tells you, well, the cream rises to the top. That's who's going to make this team. Yeah, we've heard that our whole lives, okay? The Phillies did fool us because they told us lies. Dave Dombrowski said the flaws of this team was the defense and the bullpen. Well, he kind of fixed the pitching staff through a sideways addition, but it worked. Kyle Gibson and Ranger Suarez in the rotation are obviously making this team better. And Ian Kennedy, the bullpen, gives them a little bit more depth to work with. You kind of addressed the defense with Freddie Galvis. But nobody could have expected them to become this poor at scoring runs. This team, in every game they lose, seems to struggle scoring runs without fail. Since the All-Star break, when they lost those two games to the Yankees, 6-4, 6-5, and then lost to Atlanta 7-2, see a pattern here? When they lost two straight to the Nats, 6-4, 3-1. When they lost two straight to the Pirates, 7-0, 3-2. When they lost the first two of the Dodgers series, 5-0, 8-2. When they lost four straight to Arizona, 3-2, 4-2, 6-2. Do we not see a pattern? So yes, they sold us a bill of goods because when you go to the first half of the season before the All-Star break, you know what this team was doing? They were scoring runs. There was only one game during the final stretch that they lost like really bad. And that was that 11-1 game versus the Padres. Even when they lost to Boston, it was 11-5. At least you got 5 runs out of it. When you lost to Miami, it was 11-6. There was a stretch of games that outside a couple games, you were at least putting up runs. Remember when they lost to Washington 13-12? It seems like an eternity ago. But that was June. I will not accept responsibility for a group of players who are supposed to be better, who are better, who can be better, who are not playing better. That is not my or any Philly fan's fault. Couple more messages to get to your Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Direct message show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter and the text board 609-403-0973. Glenn in EHC says if Shaq or Iverson were traded in what was considered their prime, they would have been traded for more. I think Simmons is a good player getting paid like a superstar, and what is thought to be his prime, that alone makes a deal for him have to involve something big. He has value, but with what team and what do they want to give us up is the question. A couple things, Glenn. Number one, you make it sound like Shaquille O'Neal and Iverson were at the end of their careers when they were being traded. And that's not really the case. Look, I understand that they weren't in their literal prime, but Iverson was 31 when he was traded to Denver. And the final couple of years that he had in Denver there, he was still an elite player in this league. He was still scoring in the 20s. Now, obviously, the end of his career came very quickly because of just his style of play became less and less popular, and teams didn't want to build around him. When Shaq was traded to Miami, he was 32 years old. He went on to win a championship, and then they went on to have almost another 7 years in the league. And by the way, those 3.5 seasons in Miami and then the next 2 in Phoenix, he was still a dominant force. Even at 36 years old, he was an all-star. So I understand they weren't in their primes, but to get what those teams got for 2 guys with their resumes is a problem to me. Because if you're expecting Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons, and the best you got for Iverson was Andre Miller, and the best you got for Shaq was Lamar Odom and Brian Grant and Caron Butler, I just don't understand why Ben Simmons, who has a lesser resume than those players, I understand he's 25, but I think that the Sixers might be just having too lofty of expectations. And you know what? Glenn, you're right. There are teams that want him. There are teams that value him. And I understand you don't want Colin Sexton in a trade, but sometimes you just got to take what you can get. All right, I'm going to get more of your messages throughout the show. Keep the messages coming, 609-403-0973. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN, where Jeff Bone and Pookie says, I got to work overtime, got a 12-pack of Miller High Life waiting for me at the end of the day. That sounds like an individual is willing to invest in his after work. 12-pack. Just don't drink it all in one sitting, okay, Jeff? I don't want you to get sick. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Being brought to you by the New Jersey Board of Elections. New Jersey voters, you can cast your ballot early in person before this fall's general election day. Learn more about your voting options at vote.nj.com. Actually, no, it's vote.nj.gov. Vote.nj.gov. All right. We'll talk more Phillies and Sixers with Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash. Coming up next, I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
You know, New Jersey farmers work hard all year long to provide us with delicious Jersey Fresh fruits and vegetables. This is New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. When you buy Jersey Fresh, you're guaranteed that it's local and you're supporting our farmers. Stay loyal to local.
It's back to school, and at Matt Blatt Kia, our math is easy. Put zero down, make zero payments for 90 days, or pay 0% financing for 60 months on every new 2022 Kia Stinger and Sportage in stock. Plus, we need your trade. We'll even buy it for cash. Even if you don't buy a Kia from us, used car values are at an all-time high. Your car may be worth more than you think. Worried about your credit? Forget it. We finance your future, not your past. All new 2021 Kia Niro EXEV with zero do-it signing and zero security deposit. Lease just $275 per month. It's basic math. Zero down, zero payments, or zero interest for 60 months.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 and 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 1667 for 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity financed into new loan. Niro 36-month lease, 10,000 miles per year. Excludes taxes, title, license, and dock fee. Offers don't combine. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Expires 9/6/2021.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. As he does each every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Mike McGarry joins the Sports Bash. And today he is live over at Ocean City High School's field where they have the big classic. It is Ocean with the high school sports week 0, or is it week -1? I'll have to ask Mike McGarry exactly what we qualify this, but a huge weekend of football going on over there. St. Joe's just played Northeast, and now Camden and Salem are saddling up. Mike, how you doing today?
Doing well, Josh. Hot and steamy out, but doing well.
Well, I've heard a couple of rumbles of thunder outside the studio, so hopefully you guys can get at least a couple of games in before maybe some weather flows in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if throughout the course of the day we have a game stopped or held up for a little bit because of a lightning delay. There is some weather rolling through the area. The St. Joe Northeast game with St. Joe won 31-18. Was sunny and 95 in the first half, and it poured rain in the second half. So I think today we're going to have, some surprise. I would suspect that they'd be able to get all 4 games in. Usually these thunderstorms are pretty fast moving.
Now, of course, the premier game is tonight for Ocean City versus Violent. It's a full weekend as well, Mike, over there before we get to the other stuff, because, I'm looking at this Timber Creek versus Red Bank Catholic tomorrow, Holy Spirit versus DeMatha Catholic, and then Sunday, how about Winslow versus Woodbridge? There's some pretty good matchups on this schedule this weekend.
Yeah, it's 11 games at Ocean City's field. It's 6 in Atlantic, 4 games today, 4 tomorrow, 3 on Sunday. And as well as that, we've got a full slate of not a full slate, but a smattering of regular season games going on. We've got, Mainland, EHT, Absegami, Hamilton, Oak Crest, Pleasantville. So, like you said, high school football season, it's the week before Labor Day. It's 2 weeks before the NFL starts, and high school football is in high gear, basically.
So what do we qualify this? Is this week 0? Is this week -1 for high school football? What do we call this?
Josh, I've never been able to figure that out. Week 0, 00. To me, it's week 1, and I'll go from there. I've never been able to figure out the week 0 stuff. It is week 1. And like you said, there's a lot of entertaining matchups, especially, tomorrow night would be the big night. Millville and Union. Union is a traditional North Jersey power. A lot of us expected on Millville this year. They play 5 o'clock Saturday, and then 8 o'clock. Holy Spirit, who's number 1 in South Jersey, number 1 in our Elite 11, plays DeMatha Catholic, who is number 33 in the country, a traditional power. A couple familiar names that Eagles fans might know that graduated from DeMatha: Brian Westbrook, Rodney McLeod, DeMatha graduates. So good football tradition at DeMatha.
And, of course, Mike McGarry will be having all the coverage over there with Mike McGarry and the Press of Atlantic City, pressofatlanticcity.com, joining us right here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, I got to ask you a couple things, though, about a couple of the other teams in Philadelphia, because I'm so disgusted with the Phillies. It's like Reese Hoskins isn't there and they have no offense. I don't understand why this team, with the resume and the players they have, just all of a sudden only could score 2 runs against the Diamondbacks until the 9th inning last night, thanks to a fielder's choice.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it before. It's a lineup that has not hit to its potential. And when you look at it, the only 2 guys that are really having typical years or above average years are Bryce Harper and Reese Hoskins. And now Hoskins is gone. You got to give Hoskins all the credit in the world. He came back and tried to play. It was evident from anybody who was at the game on Wednesday night, and I was at the game on Wednesday night. He just had no mobility. There were simple ground balls that he just couldn't get to. He couldn't catch a pop-up. He did hit a home run in that game, but he just can't play. A couple times he went down, and you wondered if he was going to be able to get up. So all the credit in the world for Reese Hoskins for trying to gut it through. But losing him when he is one of 2 guys having average or above average years is a blow to that lineup. And like we said many times, this was a team that was supposed to out-hit its problems, and instead its hitting became its biggest problem.
Mike, I played the Dombrowski audio earlier. He said on John Clark's podcast, he expected this team to out-hit their defensive problems. He expected that this team, this lineup, could win the division. And, well, you know what? The hitting is now the problem, and I don't understand why this team is not playing better, because you have 2 former MVPs on the team. Realmuto, we were told, is the best hitting catcher in baseball. Supposedly, Gene Segura could have been an all-star, but now he's hitting .230 since the all-star game. I don't understand, why is Reese Hoskins, a guy who's batting .247, that important to this lineup?
Well, I think it's his power, number one, his ability to hit home runs and drive in runs. He was leading the team in both categories. But I think if you go around the diamond, you see what the issue is. They get nothing out of center field. Andrew McCutchen, you're right, is a former MVP, but he's nowhere near that player. He's bothered by the knee injury. He really hasn't been the same since he went on the injured list a couple of weeks ago. Alec Bohm, we've talked about, is, I think the biggest disappointment of the season. He was supposed to be an offensive player. He's in the minor leagues. Didi Gregorius has been hurt. He's had a bad season. Gene Segura has had a good season, but he's struggled lately. I think he might have been too good in the first half, and now he's kind of reverting to the back of his baseball card. So we just went through and JT Realmuto is probably having his worst offensive season since 2016. He has not had a good season. So we just named, catcher, third base, shortstop, left field, center field. 5 of your 8 position players are not performing offensively or performing up to expectations offensively. And that's why you have a team that's, 6 games back in the loss column today. And come on, let's face facts, is all but out of a playoff race at this point.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joining us here on the Sports Bash at AC Press McGarry on Twitter. He joins us here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, let's flip over to another team that is exasperating me, which is the Sixers, because now all of a sudden Shams Charania is coming out saying that, oh, by the way, the Sixers are still working on making a trade potentially, and the Timberwolves are interested. And I feel like every few days it's the Sixers are going to trade him. Sixers are not going to trade him. The Sixers might be interested. This team is called. That team is interested. I'm just like, can we just make a trade already? Like, what is taking so long? Like, are the Sixers mishandling this? Are they handling this right? What is your perspective, Mike?
I think they're being patient, which is what I would urge them to do. I'm not rushing into a deal for Ben Simmons just to get rid of Ben Simmons. I am not doing that. I am not trading Ben Simmons just to get him out of town. I am waiting for the right deal, and I am waiting for that player. And I said, when Ben Simmons goes, the player that replaces him on the roster better be a guy who can create scoring opportunities off the dribble for himself and his teammates in the fourth quarter of playoff games. I am not dealing Simmons for anybody else but that type of guy. Now, no inside knowledge or no reporting here. I think the trade of Simmons is a complicated matter. I think you might want to get a third team involved and see what can happen there. So that's why I think these things take time. But I don't see a scenario right now where, it's going to be awkward to say the least if they don't trade Simmons, before training camp starts. And you might end up with a situation that the Houston Rockets had with James Howard, where, okay, he comes back, plays for a couple of weeks, and then he's traded. And I think all parties would like to avoid that sort of scenario.
Oh, nobody wants that. And Shams even said that in his report. He said that, look, the Sixers, do they really want this guy to come into camp? But they've been trying to trade him all offseason. I just feel like you can't do that. Mike, my concern, though, is we've heard reports of some of what they've been asking for. Are they just asking for too much? Because, you go through NBA history, guys don't always get traded for equal value. I don't know if you were going to get equal or per se better value for Ben Simmons in a situation. Like, I understand he's 25 years old, but it's not like Portland is banging down the door to trade Dame Lillard. So I don't know if the Sixers are going to be able to get best case scenario and trade value.
Yeah, some of the early offers that were reported seemed a bit absurd to me, where the Sixers were, trading Simmons straight up for big packages. Personal opinion here, I think it would have to go the opposite way. I think you'd have to combine Simmons with draft picks and maybe Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey to a team to get that shot creator back. So we'll see what happens. One reason I have confidence, Josh, is I believe in Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey's history says he can make trades for superstar players, right? While in Houston, he traded for Harden. He traded for Chris Paul. He traded for Russell Westbrook. So Morey's history says he can make big deals for star players. That's what he's got to do here. So that's why I have faith in the way the Sixers are handling this right now.
Should we read anything into the three-way trade that happened today where Lauri Markkanen went to the Cavs, Larry Nance Jr. went to Portland, and Derek Jones Jr. went to Chicago? Should we read anything into that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's anything there that, will influence or set a market or anything like that. Again, you've got to get a player. The other thing the Sixers got to do is they just signed Joel Embiid to the Supermax contract, right? So they've got to be able to walk into, before training camp, and they meet with Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid says, okay, how are we going to win an NBA championship this year? What's different about this year's team? The Sixers better be able to go in there and say, okay, Joel, this is the guy we got. This is the guy that's going to put us over the hump in the fourth quarter of those playoff games. They've got to keep Embiid happy, and I don't think you do that by running back the same exact team or saying, hey, we've got Andre Drummond. That's the difference here. So, I would expect the Sixers to make a move to improve their team before the season starts.
Just the visual of being like, hey, we got Andre Drummond, like that's
right.
That's just such a deflating thing you just said.
There's a lot of pressure on the Sixers now. I know a lot of people talk about, okay, Embiid signed a contract that keeps them here for 5 or 6 years, but that's not the way the NBA works. I don't want to say contracts are meaningless, but if the NBA, look around in NBA history, if NBA players don't think they can win at a spot, it doesn't matter how much time's left on their contract. James Harden, Anthony Davis, and a couple others, you can force your way out of a town. So, the clock is ticking on Embiid and ability to put a team around him to get a realistic shot at winning a championship. And that clock is starting right now.
AC Press McGarry on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage over at pressofatlanticcity.com, the must-win column, and all that and more. Mike McGarry joins us again on Monday's show. Mike, good conversation today.
All right, Josh, great talking to you. We'll see you on Monday.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, Mike Gill started his vacation, his final hurrah before the start of the football season, but I got you covered the rest of Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Pete Thompson joins the show next here on Happy Hour Friday, 97.3 ESPN.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schweim. Scott McKay joins me in the studio as we talk Phillies baseball. With Rhys Hoskins being done for the season, what's that mean for the Phils? We'll talk with former Phillies relief pitcher Scott Air about the dog days of summer. The Eagles play their final preseason game Friday night against the Jets. We'll recap all the action. It's the locker room with Billy Schweim Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
The number of people doing business online has skyrocketed since the pandemic hit last year. So it has never been more important than now to make sure your business can be found online. Town Square can help you find more local customers with premium website services to help you grow your business faster when you visit mylocalcustomers.com. Don't wait. Visit mylocalcustomers.com today to learn more about how Town Square can help you grow your business. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers,
It's good!
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. Happy Hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Still to come, football at 4. Andrew Checker will give us a full preview of the Eagles' final preseason game. Bob Wankel will give us more information about the dumpster fire that is the Philadelphia Phillies. And Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, will give us more NFL talk at 5:25. But joining us not 1 but 2 hours early today is the one and only Pete Thompson on a happy hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. And he joins us right now on YouTube. Where you can see Pete Thompson's smiling face. Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thanks for accommodating me at 3. I appreciate that. And have you had any weather over there in Northfield? Because in Galloway, it sounds like Zeus and Thor are having a battle outside. The thunder and lightning.
I've heard a couple booms, but the sun is still out over here. So I don't know if that's just booms in the distance or booms next door. But, I'm hearing things, but I'm not seeing the visual yet.
Well, and you're calling it a football Friday. Obviously, college football kicks off tomorrow. The Eagles preseason, their final preseason game tonight. But let's not forget the battle at the beach, right, buddy? I mean, I hope they can get those games in. St. Joe was supposed to be playing Northeast High School this morning, and then Camden versus Salem. And, I mean, we had high school football at Cary Stadium the whole way. This thing is awesome. And then Collingswood, Marple Newtown are the 5 o'clock game. And then tonight at 8, it's Vineland and Ocean City. Now, that's just like the appetizer to the big meal tomorrow when, you've got DeMatha and Holy Spirit as the headlining game tomorrow night at 8:00, and everybody wants to see how the Spartans do against ranked DeMatha. They're always a powerhouse. But, hey, don't overlook Millville. They're playing the Northern Jersey School in Union. Timber Creek, see what they can bring back. I know what's the guy's name? Bermudez, right? Is coming back for the Pirates against Red Bank Catholic. And then that early game is Pennsgrove and Bernard. So, this is just great. Finally, it's so great, Josh, that the Eagles put out a press release about it. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. They're actually going to be down there with the cheerleaders, the drum line. Swoop's going to be there. They're going to have a presence there. Now, we just have Mike McGarry on. So what he said is, considering he's there, he thinks there's going to be a couple of lightning delays, but they're going to be able to get in all the games this weekend despite the weather, because he feels like most of these are just going to be these fast-moving summer storms passing through. That's Mike McGarry's man on the ground opinion.
I could see that happening. I've been at the field at Ocean City before when you look to your left and you go, Dorothy, Toto, NEM, something's coming, right? And then you basically head for the hills and try to go find somewhere that you don't get poured on for the 20 minutes that it takes for stuff to pass through. Obviously, you're one good punt away from the one end zone, right? You could punt it into the ocean, basically. That's how close you are to the beach and Wonderland and all that, right in the shadow of the Ferris wheel and stuff. It's really cool. And I love that they're doing it. And I wanted to start by talking about it because I think it's awesome that's taking place right in our backyard.
And listen, it's something that I know that was a couple of years in the making. We should note that, this is something that was supposed to happen previously. And the one year there were some scheduling conflicts. And then last year we had COVID. So this was apparently a couple of years in the making. So it's nice to see these matchups finally, formulating in this area, because, that field at Ocean City is definitely a field that can accommodate a weekend like this.
Oh, 100%. There's a reason, too, that, it used to be at this point when the Jersey schools hadn't started, some of the Pennsylvania schools would come down, like Monsignor Bonner, or, some of those schools, the Catholic League schools would come down and play. And or, late in the summer, you'd always see Rowan come down and hold their open practice down here. Or I think one year Temple football came down and at least went on the Ocean City boardwalk if they didn't practice down here. So, I got to tell you, I'm old enough, Josh. I remember when Gary Dagenhart was coaching over there in Ocean City, and it was a grass field. And, the trend, obviously, and any school in the old Cape Atlantic League that still has a grass field is like, God, we got to get turf, But yeah, once they all went artificial surface, other than the lightning, that's the thing is that, and you remember what it's like for baseball and softball in the spring. When you have storms come through, it's not just the day of the storm. When you have a grass field that you're dealing with, 2 or 3 days after that. And that's why I think so many schools have gone to that multi-purpose, and like Egg Harbor Township, your alma mater is one like that. St. Augustine, I believe, this is what's always funny to me. St. Augustine was one of the first schools I remember that had turf. But I wouldn't necessarily call it great turf. Like, they basically had veteran stadium turf. And then as like other schools got better turf, they were like, we got to upgrade this turf a little bit. Now their turf is pretty good. But, that's the thing. Pleasantville, obviously, as an artificial surf. Look, trust me when I tell you that Holy Spirit would kill to have turf. But they're a small Catholic school in the reality of 2021 where, it's not like the Archdiocese is handing out money to them. So, look, God bless the Spartans. And I guess probably their defensive coordinator for Holy Spirit would be like, we don't want turf. We don't want anybody speeding up against our defense. That's no good. So it does work both ways, too.
Now, really quick, Pete. I got to assume you just misspoke, but did you just say EHT is my alma mater?
Oh, I thought it was your alma mater. I forget about it. No. You know why I think that? Because back in the day, you infamously had that radio call where you didn't understand why the clock was running, where you and Harry were like, you lived every week at EHT and you were doing the EHT football games, or, that was like the first time I ever knew who the hell you were, right? And now let's go.
Wow, that was 2010.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. So, yes, I did. Sorry. You went to what, Cape May Tech?
Yes, I went to Cape May Tech. Yes.
Very good. Yes. Very
good. I'm a techie student, just like your kids are.
Yeah. And my kids, I was out at school yesterday at ACIT, and we have in-service days. So I go back, sadly, next Wednesday. It's been a wonderful summer. I go back Wednesday for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in-service days, and then the kids come back the day after Labor Day. So they come back Tuesday, 9/7. So that's the schedule.
Pete Thompson, you're on a happy hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN at the PT973 on Twitter. You can catch him again this Sunday with Schweim in the locker room at 10 a.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Pete, I have a few topics I want to get hit on with you here. I want to start with the team that's on your hat and that's on my shirt, which is the Eagles. I think there's a lot of consternation out there, the expectation that there's going to be no starters in this game tonight. And apparently part of the reason is because they're supposed to play the Jets this year. So the idea is that why do you want to give the Jets any information? But at the same time, Eagle fans are saying, but the starters haven't played together. So, but Nick Sirianni says, we're getting the reps we need in these joint practices. So, Pete, do you trust the coach? Do you believe the coach? Where do you stand on this?
I'm old school. I like to have them. I mean, maybe not in this last game. You generally didn't play the starters in the last game anyway. But it really boils down to me to Jalen Hurts. And I'm a little. I was on with Mike on Tuesday and said, how many series has he played? And Mike sort of wasn't 100% sure, and I wasn't 100% sure. The answer is 2. He played 2 GD series. 2. That's it in the preseason. I mean, maybe this is the way things are going. Look, if you know anything about Nick Sirianni, it's that he's not going to conform to old school, old rules, the way things used to be. I mean, I did see a lot during training camp about how people, the old school Eagles that would stop by, or they were like in awe, like, wait, that's it? It's over? I mean, practices were like an hour and 15 minutes, instead of these 2 to 2.5 to, I mean, they had 3-hour practices in pads twice a day under Dick Vermeil back in the day at Westchester. So, it's sort of like what the new reality is. Now, if that is that they're getting their reps and they feel like they're getting enough work in these joint practice sessions, maybe that's the new norm, and I'm just slow to respond to it. But yeah, it concerns me that, and again, the other thing that concerns me is what the hell am I going to watch tonight? I mean, so you got the Phillies who tempted me again last night, and then I literally left them on as like white noise in the background while I read a book. I was reading a book, so they were in the background, and then they were still on when they actually started to rally, but being the Phillies, they came up short. And then, so you've got that, you've got the Phillies, you got the Eagles, and then, I've got these high school games. I mean, there's a lot out there for my attention tonight. Where do I go?
Well, I mean, that's, I can't tell you what to do, but it's like I was telling Kevin Durso last night, the only positive news in the city right now is the Flyers. Couturier gets an extension, you bring in Brassard. It feels like Chuck Fletcher has got you excited for Flyers season, but the Phillies are an abomination. The Eagles aren't playing anybody of, any starters tonight. There are guys who are competing for the last 10 spots in the roster, obviously, tonight. And then the Sixers, this Ben Simmons situation to me, Pete, is just, I'm over it. I'm over it, Pete. Like, now Shams Charania is coming out saying, oh, the Sixers are working on deals and the Timberwolves are still in it. I'm just like, I just heard this 2 weeks ago. Like, at some point, just, what's the old saying,
bleep word, get off the bleep.
Get off the pot, right? It's like, come on. Like, what are we, like, Pete, I don't understand this. Like, I understand the Sixers don't want to get fleeced in a Ben Simmons deal,
right?
But Shams asked the question, Pete. He said, can you really bring this guy back to camp after trying to trade him for the last 2 months?
I mean, that was a big thing for me. And not can you bring him back? Will the guy come back? That's the big narrative, too, from a lot of people out there who were saying Ben Simmons is done with the Sixers. He's not communicating with the Sixers. And then, of course, the Sixers are like, oh, that's not true. So who knows what to believe until they tip the ball off officially to start the season and Ben is on the roster? Everything is open as far as I'm concerned. Everything is a possibility. And that's annoying, but, it's one of those ever-evolving things where you have to keep watching it to see what happens.
Well, Pete, who hasn't denied any of the reports out there? Ben Simmons, his agent.
That's correct.
His people. Like,
right.
I've heard nothing from them the entire offseason.
That's their strategy, too. They like the fact that those reports are out there because then they think that puts pressure on the Sixers to actually make a move and maybe unload him to somewhere where, that's the cat and mouse game. The Sixers understand that, as offensively challenged as Ben Simmons is, for all the bad things that the fan base remembers and unwilling to shoot, passing up the shore dunk, awful, abysmal, like making Shaq look like Bob freaking Cousy from the free throw line, or even better, let's go Margate's Red Klotz, who never missed with his underhanded, where he threw it from his hips up, right? As bad as he was doing all that, Ben Simmons was, what he brings on the defensive end and his assist ratio and all those other things. I mean, the guy averages a triple-double. So they're not going to get fleeced for him. That's your cat and mouse game. The cat and mouse game is between the Sixers, who know they have to move on from the guy, or I think they want to move on from the guy, but they're not just going to hand him away. And I don't think anybody out there, after they saw what happened in the playoffs, is going to offer up the big package the Sixers are looking for. Therefore, ergo, ... those three little things at the end of the geometry problem, that, to me, that says that he's going to be back.
I feel like every day I keep switching, Pete. Every day I switch back and forth between, is he staying or is he going? Because
this is where you should cue up the Clash. Should I stay or should I go now?
Well, I mean,
if I stay, there will be trouble.
Well, that's the thing, Pete. Like, if you stay with the Sixers, it's not a reasonable situation. Like, it's not
remember
something
the next line. If I go, there will be double.
Well,
where's the good answer there? If he stays, there's trouble. If he goes, there's double.
Yeah,
that answers both you and Mike Gill's position on Ben Simmons, right?
Well, it does, because Mike's position has been, I asked him to clarify yesterday, is that he feels Sixers are not going to give him up without getting a certain amount of value in return. And my argument is, but are you sure you can get that value in return? Like, I just mentioned earlier, when the Lakers traded Shaq, when the Sixers traded Allen Iverson, there's a whole long, when the Rockets traded Harden, when the Clippers traded Chris Paul, they didn't get equal value in return for those guys
every time.
So, and I understand that Ben Simmons is younger and he's entering the prime and all that blah, blah, blah. But at some point,
go in the Wayback Machine. Were Jeff Hornacek and Tim Perry equal value for Charles Barkley?
Hey, don't forget Andrew Lang.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Clubber Lang. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Clubber Lang. I pity the fool that doesn't throw Clubber Lang into that trade.
But the point is, you're right, Pete. Like, when you make these trades, you're not always getting equal value in return. So
is your point then that the Sixers should accept the fact they're not going to get equal value and just make the move?
Well, part of my thing is I think the Sixers need to accept the fact that they're not going to get Damian Lillard.
Yeah, but they haven't, look, the first step is denial, right? Or the first sign is admitting you have a problem. I mean, not to compare the Sixers to Bill W's program, but my God, their problem is Ben Simmons. The issue is they think they can get equal value back, and the rest of the league knows that they're not going to give them equal value back. So again, cat and mouse, push and pull, yin and yang, something's going to happen. I mean, look, you're right. You said his name earlier. God bless Chuck Fletcher, man. I never thought I'd say that. Even if they go down in a ball of flames, at least Chuck Fletcher recognized that he needed to change the room, change the culture. And boy, oh boy, have they done that, including, Coots will make all the headlines because they give him the 8-year deal and the $62 million extension. Derek Brassard, that's one of those like veteran moves where it's sort of that's a CYA move too. That's a move too where not only does the guy understand how to play hockey and he's, you brought in more veterans that have more compete level, but you also then protect yourself if Morgan Frost isn't ready to like take that next step. Now you have a guy like Brassard that is happy to jump in and contribute. So, I mean, I love everything that Chuck Fletcher's done. In fact, I was going to reach out to Billy today and tell him we should try to get Chuck on the show. And I don't know where Billy is. He must be in the witness protection program. I haven't heard from him for a couple of days. Usually by now he's already hit me up for like, hey, you think you can call so-and-so and get him on Sunday?
Well, I know he's got Rich Gannon on Sunday. So.
Oh, he does? Oh,
yes.
Well, in that case, he's already feels that he has one big name, so we don't.
Yeah, He's got Scott Air and Tommy Green tomorrow. He's got Rich Gannon on Sunday.
Oh, nice.
But it's ironic because I literally told Billy yesterday, I'm like, hey, Billy,
you're the hockey guy.
Pete, well, no, I was like, Pete's Pete's back in. Oh, he is? And I'm like, you didn't talk to Pete Thompson? Like, what are you doing all week? Come on, Billy.
You've been talking to me more than he has. Yeah, I might text him after you and I get done here and suggest a hockey guest, perhaps. Since
I'd
text
like him and bust his stones about, don't you like me anymore? Are you done with me? Like, you know,
what happened?
I'm not good enough. Did you find somebody else to text with during the week? Come on, Bill.
I missed 1 week for unexpected circumstances, and good to know you.
Yeah, emergency situations happen. Doesn't mean they don't stop talking to each other. Like, come on.
Yeah, come on now. What the heck?
Pete Thompson joining us here for Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Pete, you mentioned earlier how frustrating some of these teams are. Well, Pete, I'm so aggravated with the Phillies. I feel like they sold us a bill of goods. I feel we got wolf tickets. I feel we've been fleeced. I feel we've been lied and manipulated. Dombrowski said over a month ago, Pete, we can out-hit our defense in pitching.
Yeah.
Well, now the pitching is no longer a problem, and the hitters on most nights are only getting you 2 runs. In fact, for the 9th inning last night, every game versus Arizona, you had literally 2 runs in every game. In all the games between Hoskins' first and second time on the injury list, they scored 2.87 runs per game.
Pretty unbelievable, isn't
it? I don't understand why a guy who bats .247 is that important to a team with not 1, but 2 MVPs on the team, supposedly the best hitting catcher in baseball. Segura's batting .230 since the All-Star break. I mean, this team is an embarrassment.
He just changes things is the way to answer that, you know, and the fact that he can put the ball over the fence. I mean, that's been the other thing too, you know. I mean, Rhys Hoskins is a guy that can hit the ball over the fence, and not a lot of guys can do that in this lineup. In fact, if I'm looking at this correctly, they got a 193 batting average over their last 10 games. They're 2-8 in their last 10, 193 batting average. The pitchers have a 4.64 ERA, and they've been outscored by 13 runs. These are your Philadelphia Phillies. You know, I did listen the other day, and I enjoyed the other day when Gill was putting out the theory that, well, you got to bring Bone back. And I love the fact that you said, hey, you know, Todd Frazier's available. And he was like, oh. And then later on that night, I saw not 1, not 2, but 6 possibilities that the Phillies could use at first base. I enjoyed that very much because I knew that the seeds of that article had been planted in your back and forth dialogue.
Yeah, also Frank Close brought it up on Twitter as well. So it wasn't just you. It was multiple people bringing up listen, Todd Frazier sort of going to play better defense than Boma at this point. So, I mean, you get, to me, you got to try something. Like you can't keep going back to the Bone-moniac well every time somebody goes out. Like, I'm sorry, but Todd Frazier's played in the Olympics, like, a couple weeks ago? At least he's playing against real baseball players.
Well, maybe more than a couple weeks ago. I mean, and like what he's been doing recently was he was out at the Little League World Series. I know this, Josh, okay? The Phillies organizational system, their farm system and their ability to develop talent has been lacking and in crisis. And they finally did acknowledge that this week with the firings and the moves that they made on Tuesday. So, that's a big thing. That says a lot to me, you know, quite frankly, that and didn't I see that their top pitching prospect now has some issues too? I mean, wherever you turn, it's a one strike after another, literally, you know, where they just can't develop talent or they're picking the wrong guys or, you know, but yeah, it was a shame, you know, with no Rhys Hoskins now. And look, I think it's a nice story to see that Freddie Galvis is back, for example. I like his smile. I like that he's happy to be here. You know, he appreciates Philadelphia. What was Freddie last night? 0 for 4? Did he even have a hit last night?
I don't know, Chuck, but I thought he went hitless too. So
yeah, I don't think so. So I mean, and I'm just saying, like, this is a guy on the twilight of his career, not in the prime of his career, and that's part of the issue. But I mean, look, they sucked me in. You know what they did? They do exactly what the Phillies do. They were down miserably in the game. They looked like they didn't have a chance at all, and then they had a 5-run 9th inning, just enough. It's like the mob, you know. Once you think you're out, they suck you back in.
Right, it's the Godfather line, exactly.
100%. You know, that 5-run 9th last night was enough for me to go, well, I should at least watch tonight to see what they do. You know, you just feel like you have to take a chance and take a look.
It's just frustrating, Pete. It just is, because I
Dallas
felt like
was
this
0 for 3 last night, by the way, but he did score 2 runs. He did score.
Well, part of that was that stupid ninth inning where all the runs were unearned in the ninth inning. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, there was some plays in the outfield that were a little bit dubious, as compared to, for example, like in the 2-game Tampa series. Did you see that one play where the guy like slid in right field and then popped up? He like cut the ball off in the gap like late as they were trying to make a rally. That's winning baseball to me. That's winning baseball as opposed to like you're talking about, when Alec Boehm's in there booting the ball around or them throwing the ball away at first or, the Phillies have been a defensive liability all year. And to circle around to your point, Dombrowski said, well, our plan is to out-hit our mistakes. Guess what? They're not doing that side of it either.
No, they're not. And that brings me to one of my final points I want to ask you about, Pete, here on 97.3 ESPN. Pete Thompson, Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. I was telling Durso last night, I'm convinced that the team that's going to win a championship first at this rate is going to be the Flyers. Because
from your lips to God's ears, heck yeah.
Because I feel the Phillies are like 3-4 players away from being a contender at this point. As long as the Ben Simmons fiasco is hovering over the Sixers, I have no confidence they can get to the NBA Finals, let alone win it at this point. And then the Eagles, this is a transition year. So this year, you could basically chalk up to 7 wins and then hope for more next year. So in the short term, to me, there's only one team that has a chance to make a run, and that's your Philadelphia Flyers.
Well, and they had to do something, and I'm diving into some of the details on Couturier's contract too, by the way. I didn't realize that it has a no movement clause for the first 7 years and a limited trade clause in that 8th and final year. I know that, he's going to be 37 when that contract ends. So a lot of these used to be these long-term deals. They'd sign them to him and then they were never around for the whole thing, Well, let's put it this way. There were 2 guys that are due for a contract extension. And the guy they locked up was Sean Couturier. You know who the other big notable name is that has not gotten a contract extension yet and is going to play this season sort of with speculation about his future. You know who that guy is, right?
I feel like I'm drawing a blank, but I should know.
He wears number 28.
Oh, Drew.
Yeah, Drew. Right. So it says something that this is like this is the guy that they chose to give the long-term extension to, not the team captain. If he played to the end of his contract, Couturier would have 19 seasons with the Flyers. That's almost ridiculous. Bobby Clark played 15. Claude Giroux is entering into his 15th year, probably his 15th and final year, So we'll see. But yeah, to your point about which team's going to win the championship first, look, did we know going into the Eagles Super Bowl season that they were going to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. And a lot of things fell their way. And I think football tends to be one of the ones where you can reverse your fortunes really quickly based on your health and your schedule and a little bit of luck and things like that. But I would say hockey, you know me, you're not going to get an argument out of me if you're picking the Flyers to win the cup or the Flyers to be the first Philly team to win a championship. You're not getting an argument out of me for that.
Really quick, anybody watching me on the video keeps seeing me turn my head. If anybody's out there driving right now, I hope you're staying safe because that booming of thunder outside is booming through my headset. I'm hearing it over Pete Thompson in the cans on my ears.
Yeah, I got some thunder out here in Galloway too. I've been telling you, man. There's some cells going through the area. Be careful. It's they're breaking the heat wave. Finally, they're going to break that, and we can get rid of that air you can wear. That's what the meteorologists say.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, Pete, I did want to say I appreciate getting the Pete Thompson seal of approval on my article today about Atlantic County bars you can watch football at this year. So
heck yeah. Not only did you get my seal of approval and a retweet, but and it wasn't just a retweet, it was a quote tweet. See, the quote tweet is always better than the retweet. But but not only did I quote tweet it, but I went through, Josh, there wasn't one in the list that the PT hasn't been to.
I like to hear that.
Including the West End. Into the West End.
Listen, man, I feel like, sometimes you got to highlight the local businesses, and, I know there are a contingent of people who all they do is go to Applebee's and Outback, and they don't try anything else. But, there's a lot of great local people in this area owned businesses that I think people should go frequent. That's just my perspective.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm going to try to see how many of those I can hit this football season. Check out that list, 97.3ESPN.com.
He's the Pete Thompson. He'll be back on Sunday with Billy Schwein. By the way,
Billy texted me too. He is alive.
I think Billy doesn't understand from these texts that it doesn't take long to send a text.
Right.
Like he's making it like all the things he listed on this text to me.
Yeah,
that prohibits him from saying anything at all to people. Like,
right.
Like what?
How long does it take to send a text? Hey, are you with me this Sunday? Send.
Right. Hey, how are you? What are you doing? That was a nice
one too. Right. You didn't. Yeah, that was very nice, Josh. You did not text me and say, "Hey, dude, I don't want to work 7 days in a row. My God, please tell me you're working." You actually led with a text of, "How are you feeling?" Although I figured that it was sort of drawing into, I would like to not be here every single day that ends in Y. But yeah, no, I'm feeling great, and I'll be there on Sunday with Billy. Sounds like Rich Gannon is a guest, and I'm going to try to get us a Flyers guest. So
yeah, and I'm excited because I will be sleeping in both Saturday and Sunday this weekend because
good for you.
Colton is covering the Schwein for me on Saturday, so I get one Saturday that I don't have to come in here.
Wow, a full weekend. Look at you.
Well, I still have to come in later in the day to do work.
That's true.
But the beauty of me is that once I get enough sleep, I can do anything.
Right.
So that's how I function. The more sleep, the better. So I get 2 straight days this weekend, and then next weekend's Labor Day weekend. Yeah. So I get Sunday and Monday to sleep in. So I have back-to-back weekends. I get 2 days to sleep in. I'm excited.
Yes. This is like a party for Josh.
The things I value in life as I get older, sleep.
Who is it? Bob Wenkel that switched spots with me? Tell him I said thank you.
Well, he didn't really switch spots. It was more like he's typically scheduled for 4:40, but there have been a lot of days I try to move him up because I want to get to the Phillies conversation with him sooner.
Right.
So I just kept him at 4:40 today and let you move up.
Appreciate that. You're a good man.
Pete, have a good weekend. We'll be tuning in to the locker room. Billy Schwein, Pete Thompson this Sunday at 10 a.m. on 97.3 ESPN.
See you, buddy.
He's Pete Thompson joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Always good to talk with the PT here on a Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN Sports Bash, being brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop DelValAcuraDealers.com. We'll get back to your messages coming up next here on the Sports Bash. Of course, you can direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea City. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter. Just watch the show at 973 ESPN. And text board is also there for you if you choose to contact us through there. Still 609-403-0973. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash.
We never stop talking Eagles and NFL. It's football at 4. Every day at 4 p.m. on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN FM, live in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. You can watch the show as we are live in the Matt Black Kia studios on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Get some of your messages here as the weather is passing through, to say the least. Hope you're all staying safe out there. It's got a little thunder, a little lightning. Oh my goodness. What was the name of that movie? Now it's going to bother me if I don't look it up. Let me double check real quick. There was a movie with Sean William Scott and The Rock. I got to look it up really quick. Please hang with me for a hot second. It was early 2000s. I think it was called The Rundown? Yes, The Rundown. Anybody remember the scene from The Rundown where he thinks he's going to fight The Rock, and he tells him, have you said hello to my friend, Mr. Thunder, not my other friend, Mr. Lightning, and he wiggles his feet. And Dwayne Johnson looks at him like, what is wrong with you? Oh, my goodness. That was a fun movie. If you haven't seen The Rundown, you want a good chuckle, go watch The Rundown. That was like the early years of Dwayne Johnson's acting career. And Christopher Walken was the main bad guy. Rosario Dawson's in the movie. It's a fun movie. But yeah, it's called The Rundown. So I just thought of that scene. It's a good one. It's a fun movie. It's a movie you don't take too seriously. It's fun. All right. I'm looking at the radar right now. Whatever this storm is, it literally is like these pockets that are passing through. Apparently the heaviest part of the rain looks like it's going to show up around 6 or 7 o'clock and then be out of here around 8 and 9. But for right now, we got these little tiny patches that are passing through the region. So it's a complete hit or miss, it looks like, until around 6 o'clock. That's at least according to my eyes on the radar. Now, unless this radar is wrong, but you never know. There's a special weather statement in effect. Listen, you don't need me to read the special weather statement. We can all hear the thunder. We can all see the radar. There are storms passing through. Thanks, Captain Obvious. All right, let's get to some of your messages here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back deeper into the football conversation. Andrew Checo, Football on 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer at 5:25. And, of course, Bob Wankel from Crossy Broad will join us at 4:40 p.m. today. Talk more about the Phillies here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Texter says, the Sixers want more value because Ben is 25 years old, has the potential to be great. Shaq and Iverson were both on the wrong side of 30 and injury prone. Listen, I get that, but there's also issues with Ben Simmons. What is more of a demerit in terms of value? The fact that Shaq and Iverson were on the wrong side of 30? Or the fact that Ben Simmons can't make free throws? Give me Shaq and Iverson on the wrong side of 30, then Ben Simmons can't make a free throw. I mean, let's not be ridiculous here, okay? We're acting like, what happened in one era is different than another. Basketball value even for Harden and for Chris Paul. Okay, you want to focus on those two? Fine. Let's go with Chris Paul. All right. Let's go over exactly what Chris Paul was traded for. When he was traded from the Clippers to the Rockets, yeah, he was 32. He was the same age as Shaq and Iverson. All right. A more recent trade. You know what the Clippers got for him? The Clippers got Patrick Beverley, Sam Decker, Montrezl Harrell, De'Ron Hillard, DeAndre Liggins, Lou Williams, Kyle Witcher, $661,000 in cash, and a first-round pick that became Amari Spellman. Yeah, a lot of players, and a couple of very good role players, by the way, in Bev and Lou Will, and they drafted Amari Spellman, but he was then traded to the Warriors. So, all right, let's go with James Harden. What age was James Harden this past year when they traded him? James Harden, all right, he's also 31. So there's a pattern. All these guys are superstars being traded on the wrong side of 30. I get that. But what's more valuable? A guy that I know what I'm getting, or a guy that's a lot of what ifs? Well, if Ben Simmons becomes a better free throw shooter, well, if Ben Simmons can work on his jump shot, well, if Ben Simmons does this or that, you are literally treating Ben Simmons like a draft pick. We have spent way too much time in the world of sports evaluating people off of potential instead of what they're actually able to do. Because what happens is when you project someone on potential and not actual ability, you are not getting what you asked for. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what you're getting. How many players who have been drafted in the NBA have become busts? Like Josh Jackson in recent years because, I don't know, they weren't living up to potential. Yes, Ben Simmons has potential, but I don't want to live my life on what if. The Sixers need to be more reasonable in their trade demands. And for those who might not have heard, I'm going to try to pull up the Shams report here. Let me just try to get this thing queued up here. I got to make sure I have the right audio because so the Shams report was not an actual tweet for those who don't know. It was a segment that he did in like a segment interview kind of thing. So I'm trying to make sure I have the right one before I play it again because there's a couple versions of it and the one version cuts off part of what he says, but basically with Bally Sports, all right? For those who don't know, Shams Charania he writes for The Athletic, but The Athletic and him also have a partnership with Bally Sports. And of course, you know Bally Sports from a friend of the show, Brandon Scoopy Robinson. So they work together. So this is the exact audio of what Shams Charania said on Bally Sports about his reporting on Ben Simmons.
Because with Embiid's contract now taken care of, the next major question is how Sixers president Daryl Morey will handle the Ben Simmons situation. There have been plenty of trade talks involving the 6'11 guard this summer, but he remains in Philly with just over a month until training camp begins. So, Shams, what's the latest on this Simmons situation in Philadelphia, especially with his future with the team as we get closer and closer to training camp?
Yeah, Cam, both sides want the same thing, which is a trade of Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia. And we've seen that kind of develop as the years gone on. This whole season, he was offered up in those James Harden talks during the course of the regular season. That obviously did not happen. And then the flame out that occurred in the playoffs, really for the entire team. But the spotlight was really shined on Ben Simmons. And you saw Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid shine that light on Ben Simmons. And now, the Sixers started conversations a few weeks before the draft with teams on trying to figure out which offer might be the best. I think they made some headway with some teams, but at the end of the day, they don't have a deal done. I'm told they're continuing to talk to teams. Minnesota is one of the most interested teams in Ben Simmons, but a package with them would require a third team, and those deals aren't easy. So what I would expect is a climax to this situation to occur closer to the start of training camp, because that's when there's going to be pressure. Are you going to want to bring Ben Simmons into training camp? Are you going to want to try to get something done before camp starts? I think that's really where we're going to see all this stuff start to.
So that's the full perspective on what Shams said today. or at least the audio and the video was out today. Okay. And that's from a show called Inside the Association, associated with Stadium and their partner, Bally Sports. So let's just break it down. So Shams is basically confirming everything that we have suspected and seen and heard for the last couple months, that the Sixers have been trying to trade Simmons. Both sides want the trade to happen, that Minnesota is hot on the tail of all of this, and that Ben Simmons, if he comes to camp, that may force the Sixers to make a trade sooner than later. Because, as Mike McGarry said earlier in the show, you don't want a James Harden situation in Philadelphia, where he wants out of Houston and he makes life miserable for everybody until he gets traded, right? So I understand that the Sixers want more value for Ben because he's 25 years old compared to guys like Shaq, Harden, Iverson, and Chris Paul when they were all traded around 31, 32 years old. But with those four guys I just mentioned, they have all won MVPs except for Chris Paul before they were traded. At least with Chris Paul, he's been a multiple-time All-Star. He's been one of the best point guards in the entire league. So three of the four guys I just mentioned have all been MVP award winners, or in Chris Paul's case, his resume is incredible. Ben Simmons doesn't have the resume those guys do. He doesn't have all of the stuff that those guys have behind them. When you pass the ball to Harden, Chris Paul, Iverson, and Shaq, even at 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, you knew what you were getting from these players, which is excellence. I don't know what I'm getting from Ben Simmons. So you can want more value all you want. But the what ifs are demerits on that value. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, filling for Mike Gill. We'll be talking more football coming up. Andrew Checo, Football on 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Also to come, more Phillies talk with Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, Phillies reporter, joining us right here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles finish the 2021 preseason tonight against the New York Jets.
Takes the snap. Here comes the rush. Let's go. Complete into the end zone. Touchdown, Tucker.
Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 7:30. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
You know, New Jersey farmers work hard all year long to provide us with delicious Jersey Fresh fruits and vegetables. This is New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. When you buy Jersey Fresh, you're guaranteed that it's local and you're supporting our farmers. Stay loyal to local.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig back here on the Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Just want to remind you, so for me, this is the first official Football Friday. So those of you who've been listening to me for the last few years know that, you know, whether I've been on Game Night with Josh Hennig or the warm-up or whatever show I've been hosting over the years, which I appreciate all of you been hanging out with me. This will be my fourth year going through football schedules because tomorrow is the first regular season football games of the college football season. So later in the show, I'm going to give you some thoughts on the college football season, what I'm looking at that you might want to get a little action in with in the college football world. Also, my article is up right now on 97.3 ESPN.com. I'll give you the full rundown later in the show of the businesses that I highlighted on 97.3 ESPN.com. I went through Atlantic County, bars that you can watch football at, whether it's this weekend or next weekend or whenever you're watching football. Maybe you're an NFL person in college football, that's fine. Or maybe you just want to go out and have a good time. That's what these places are for. So it's always important to highlight local businesses where you can support your own community. You can check that whole gallery and list out over at 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, which you would have gotten an alert for. See, if you download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, which is free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, you would have gotten the alerts today of the establishments that you can go watch football at this fall. You would have gotten the news about Ben Simmons before the show came on today. You would have gotten the news last night about Reese Hoskins. You would have gotten all of our perspectives on all these topics over on the website with the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. So we got a lot to still get to throughout the show today. You can keep your messages coming at 609-403-0973. We're live on YouTube and Twitter. And, of course, you can chime in as well through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Direct message to show. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And, by the way, so, you know, those of you who may or may not be watching the show on YouTube, you might have seen some of my reactions throughout the show. The thunder is really loud outside, but I do want to give you guys all an Eagles update. According to John Clark of NBC Sports Philadelphia, the Eagles starters will not play tonight, and it's expected that in part this is because the Eagles are playing the Jets during the regular season. Maybe the NFL needs to do a better job at not scheduling preseason games with teams you're going to play in the regular season.
Health update with Robin. you have the choice. Whether it's going out for dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant or buying that new outfit from a local boutique, those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local businesses.
Ambient Comfort Heating and Cooling Professionals. AmbientComfortNJ.com.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. FillingMarble.com.
Dennisville Fence, serving you since 1952. Be the envy of your neighborhood.
East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Comfort Now by Bob McAllister. Improve the comfort in your home. Call 609-400-1005 and ask about discounts and rebate incentives. Visit iwantcomfortnow.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media, South Jersey.
A Town Square Media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, got 'em!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DeCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football Friday edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill on a Friday edition of the show. And as we said, joining us as he does each every Friday, Andrew DeCecco. Eagles' final preseason game is tonight. We are days away from them having to get down to the first 53 of the 2021 NFL season. So to dive more into tonight and Tuesday with us right now is Andrew DeCecco for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at a DeCecco NFL on Twitter. Give him a follow there. Andrew, how you doing this Friday?
Hey, Josh, I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, listen, I'm excited. Tomorrow is college football, but we still got to get through today because – listen, tonight we might not see any starters as all the reports are out there, but there are still roster spots on the line. So before I get into the details of that, I want to ask you about, one of the speculations out there is that part of the reason why the Eagles are not playing any starters tonight is because they have to play the Jets this upcoming season, and that the Eagles don't want to show them anything. Do you buy into that at all?
Well, they play them, in December? I believe it's December 13th or week 13 or something to that effect. I mean, I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to gauge from the fourth preseason game. You don't really show anything in the preseason anyway. I think it's more of a way to preserve the starters. I mean, the weather is not going to be great tonight, so why risk injury? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of rain in that area. So you don't usually play starters anyway in the final preseason game. You can make an argument that some players could use the extra work, but with the season 2 weeks away, why risk it in this scenario? I don't know that it would matter one way or the other if they were playing them. I don't know that it would matter if they were playing them for the opener. You're not going to show anything in the fourth preseason game or the third preseason game.
That's the other aspect of this, Andrew, is, I talked with Jeff about this about a week ago, but the fact that you think about the fact that you have the final preseason game tonight, then you have the roster cut downs on Tuesday, but you still have another, 10 days before the start of the NFL season. So this whole schedule takes a lot of getting used to, and I'm going to have to see how teams like the Eagles play this out, because we know the first 53 is not the 53 that plays on the first week of the season.
Right, yeah, that's the fluid 53, as they call it. Usually, you have to reach a 53-man roster limit by 4:00 on that day, but obviously then there's the waivers that follow, and teams are usually putting claims if they see if there's an area to upgrade. You could look at wide receiver, defensive tackle, possibly linebacker for depth that the Eagles could look at. But a lot of teams do that, so they have to reach a certain limit. But then there's always that There's new wrinkles that are sometimes tossed in there. I believe in 2016 that, for example, they grabbed 3 different guys. There's Bryce Treggs, Kamuka, Jay Hill, and Terrence Brooks. So, I mean, it does happen.
Now, with tonight's game, obviously there are some guys who are definitely still playing for roster spots, and you highlight over at InsideTheBirds.com the situation with Travis Fulgham and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, 2 players that came in with completely different set of expectations, and now, moving forward, Andrew, you kind of have to wonder, who exactly does the team decide to go with, because we know that the Eagles place a lot of value on these joint practices. So you have to wonder how much what happens tonight, is it really going to swing them, or does it confirm what they already thought? Like, this is going to be a very fascinating, tug and pull when it comes to these 2 wideouts.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that this final game is going to sway them one way or the other. I feel like they're entering this game with an idea of how they envision that wide receiver position based on what they've seen in game action and what they've seen throughout the summer. Now, I think Travis Fulgham has the most upside when you're looking at him compared to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and John Hightower. But again, he had that 5-week surge in the midseason last year, and it was very remarkable in the way that he did it. It sort of emerged out of nowhere, but he sort of faded to the background. Obviously, the return of Alshon Jeffrey and certain variables contributed to that. But then you wanted to see you had a golden opportunity this summer to become one of the top 3 receivers, put your stamp on that role. It really hasn't materialized in that way. He got sort of leapfrogged in the pecking order by Quez Watkins. Greg Woold's still there as a competent slot receiver, sure-handed guy, you have there. So it really, they lack a competent big body receiver that they can count on. And when you look at what the options are right now, it could ultimately come down to Fulgham and JJ. It ultimately depends on what this coaching staff, who is so wide receiver centric, if they feel like they can get something out of JJ and they need a little bit more time, if they see something that they like in him, or if it's something that they see with Travis Fulgham that they think that they can unlock his ability to play at that same level that he played last year and keep him engaged, right? I mean, that's one of the main things with him. You got to keep him engaged. And then you also look at the dual ability to play special teams. Who can contribute more in that facet? I think that Travis Fulgham played, I believe it was 13 snaps last week, and JJ only played a handful. So you keep an eye on that tonight. You want to see who can really make some plays in third base for Michael Clay.
Between J-Jaw and Fulgham, in your eyes, which of them has the better chance of actually benefiting this team if they make the roster?
Travis Fulgham. He's done it before in game situations. JJ has really had standout camps the past 2 summers, but it never really translated into game situations. Whereas when you've seen Fulgham do it against pretty high caliber defenses. Now you have to figure out, if you're the Eagles, you have to figure out, was that an outlier, or is that him playing at peak performance? Can you get him to play at that performance at that level again? If so, then you keep him on the roster, and he very well make the initial 53. But we'll talk about how that's fluid. They may see someone who sort of shakes free from another team that they prefer and think that they can help the team in a more significant way. So Travis could also make the team outright, and then be subject to waivers, and the next day if they see somebody else that they prefer.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. They were being joined by Andrew DeCecco at DeCecco NFL on Twitter. Check out all of his Eagles coverage over at 97.3 the InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew joining us here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Andrew, when you think about the wide receivers overall, to me, one of the things that stands out is also what happens with tight end, because if Ertz is on this team, obviously there's less reps for the back end of the wide receiver depth chart. Whereas if Ertz isn't here, you're going to expect more from the younger players. So is part of the Eagles' decision, what they do with wide receiver, also impacted by what they do at tight end, knowing that they have Ertz and Goddard? It's a lot different than if Ertz is not here.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can make a strong case to keep Ertz on the roster because Ertz and Goddard is a stronger combination than the third receiver, or whoever that would be, whether that be Greg Ward, who I believe that would be right now. And Quez Watkins, I think, will eventually get some reps there as well, and he's going to take on a much larger role as the season sort of unfolds. But right now, Ertz and Goddard present such different matchup issues for defenses, and it enables Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith to be out there out wide, and you sort of spread defenses out and give them so many different looks with that personnel. And I think that if you keep Ertz on the team, you really only need 5 receivers. Why keep 6 receivers just to keep 6 receivers if you don't have 6 rosterable players at that position, right? So I think if they go 5 and they probably go heavier at tight end, because Richard Rodgers has shown that he can be an impactful player when pressed in the service. And then you also have a guy like Jack Stoll, who I'm going to be keeping a close eye on tonight, who has flashed as well and showed some promise, and Tyree Jackson, of course, as well. So you could certainly make a case to keep 4 tight ends and go heavier there.
Also, you mentioned the 4 tight ends. Does that also maybe factor in for maybe some of their goal line plans? Like, obviously, in the goal line situation, you're using a much different setup than you would if you were like on, 1st and 10 at the 50-yard line.
Yeah, and that's where a player, for example, like Jack Stoll, who is a pretty strong blocker, probably the second best blocker in that group behind Dallas Goedert. And those are certain traits that you look for. Now, I think that it's going to be determined. I mean, he also can play special teams. Jack played 8 snaps last week against the Patriots, and he caught the ball pretty well. He had 7 targets, caught 4 for 33. So he's a player that I think that has an outside shot to make it. And I don't know if they want to, depending on how he plays tonight, I don't know if they want to risk exposing him to waivers. They have 2 young tight ends who have offered different degrees of promise in Tyree Jackson and Jack Stoll. Unfortunately, Tyree got hurt and wasn't able to see his summer progress through. But, I mean, the Eagles have really sort of unearthed 2 promising players at the position.
You mentioned waivers. Who is a player on offense right now that the fans know who they are, who could actually make it through waivers if the Eagles decide to go that way?
On offense, I would say probably Coyote Awosika, the guard from Buffalo, and possibly Jason Huntley, the running back. I think he might be able to slip through waivers now. He really hasn't played a ton this summer. He offered some flashes, some glimpses of what he can bring and be to the offense. But I think that you can get him through waivers and probably stash him on the practice squad and call him up if need be. Those are 2 players right there off the top of my head that I could think of.
And you mentioned offensive lineman from Buffalo. Who are you going to keep an eye on tonight with the Eagles offensive line? Because we know who the starters are, but I think a lot of fans still have questions about the backups because we know that Driscoll and Herbig, we have an idea what they are, but what happens with the backup tackles is a very interesting conversation to me.
Yeah, I'll be looking at the Raven Clark. I'll be looking at Brett Toth, and I'll be looking at Coyote Awosika because he's a player that as an undrafted free agent, I thought that he had a really strong shot to make the roster because of his versatility. He played left tackle and right tackle at Buffalo, shifted into the inside at the pro level, doesn't have the prototypical size to be a tackle at the NFL level, but he does have that power and he's able to move people from the inside, has had a strong summer. But now, there's going to be other teams are going to have that game film out there. So he might be able to latch on as one of the final linemen. It depends on how well he performs. But those are 3 guys on that offensive line, to answer your question, that I'll be keeping an eye on.
And just flipping over to the defensive side, specifically on the defensive line, obviously no Brandon Graham, no Javon Hargrave, no Fletcher Cox, no Barnett, no Sweat, and no Kerrigan tonight. So that means a lot of young guys are going to be getting action in. I'm very curious to see what happens tonight because we saw the Patriots game. It looked like some of those guys were really overwhelmed. So how important tonight is the game and the action for guys like a Teron Jackson or a Marlon Tuipulotu, guys like that. How important is tonight?
Oh, it's enormous for their stocks. I mean, I think that their fates have already been sealed because of just how deep they are at that position. And like I said, I don't know that the final game can really make or break their roster hopes when they've had weeks to evaluate these guys and already 2 games. So they sort of have an idea of what these guys are at this stage of their career. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of Teron Jackson. You're going to see a lot of Marlon Tuipulotu. You're going to see Raekwon Williams, Jaquan Bailey. You're going to see a lot of these type of guys out there. But they've been gashed. Make no mistake, they've been gashed in the running game. And while I went into the training camp, when I was evaluating the roster, I thought that Marlon Tuipulotu had a decent shot at making the team, but really does not have NFL level strength right now. Sort of getting bullied by these interior linemen, pushed around in the running game. That much is evident. I didn't expect to see that, but I think that he might be best served with a year on the practice squad where he can really develop and refine some of his skills. Teron Jackson, I thought that earlier in the preseason, earlier in training camp, he really flashed his motor and his power, but he really has not made the impact against the run that I thought that he has in college. And that's something that has really come to light over the past, especially last week. But I think you're starting to see that he might be a player that might not be deemed rosterable on the 53, but might be a good practice squad project where he can continue to develop.
Another rookie on the defensive line that people have had a lot to say about. A lot of coaches, a lot of players have said a lot of positive things about Milton Williams. What do you expect his role to be for the Eagles this season, and what can he be moving forward?
I think he's going to have a big role, and he's shown already that the game isn't too big for him, that he adjusted to the speed of the NFL pretty remarkably, and he has the versatility to play defensive end, defensive tackle. I think he's going to be the number 3 tackle, and he's going to thrive in stunts and different line games that they're going to do, twists. And really he has superhuman strength for being such a young player, good lateral agility, uses his hands extremely well. There's a lot of tools there to like with him. He has a lot of advanced tools for such a young player, and I think you're going to see him utilized at both defensive end and defensive tackle pretty early in the season. I think he's going to have a regular role on defense.
Andrew DeCecco here on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at @DeCecco NFL on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, I want to ask you about the linebackers, because I believe the assumption at this point is that we know who the 2 main guys are, Singleton and Wilson, right? But after that, I'm curious to see what happens, because there's speculation out there that teams have called the Eagles about Jernard Avery. We know that Patrick Johnson has flashed in joint practices. TJ Edwards looks like he's the best version of himself right now. Sean Bradley looks really good in some of the action. We know that Jacoby Stevens and Davion Taylor, there's a lot of hope for them. They had promise, but both of them got injured. What is your perspective on the linebackers after Wilson and Singleton?
TJ Edwards is the clear-cut number 3, in my opinion. I thought that he returned this summer in great shape. He moves a lot better in coverage, and you got to give a credit to TJ for working on that area of his game to make himself a more valuable commodity for Jonathan Gannon and find a role and not just be typecast as that 2-down run defending thumper, which is what he really was. And he got exposed a little bit in coverage, which limited his usage. So I think that he really took a step forward in his progression. He'll be the number 3. And then after that is where it gets very interesting, because you have a guy like Sean Bradley, who really impressed against the Steelers. He was all over the place. I thought he missed some tackles and over-pursued a little bit against the Patriots. You mentioned the 2 linebackers, Davion Taylor and Jacoby Stevens. They both flashed in the beginning of training camp, but unfortunately both were injured and not able to continue their summers. I think both of those guys make the roster, and then it looks like it's going to be Patrick Johnson to be that hybrid Sam role for Gannon as that sort of pass rushing edge rusher off the, it's going to be a very unique look for that role. And I think that Jernard Avery's nursing groin injury, and Joe Osman's no longer here. So by default, Patrick Johnson's got the inside track again, unless they see somebody that they like that sort of shakes free from another team's roster that they think can make a more immediate impact.
Andrew, based on your NFL draft analysis and your thoughts on Patrick Johnson, what can he be in the NFL? What can he be in this Eagles defense?
Well, he's a tweener build. He's 6'2", 248. So I think that he's going to be it's obviously going to be a situational pass rusher, but he's a very instinctive player, good anticipation, smart guy. But I do think that he can make an impact in a rotation. And he's a guy that you got to keep fresh. You don't want to wear him down. Then the players of his mold tend to lose their effectiveness if they're overused. But I think keep him on a snap count. He'll play a long time in this league, whether it be this year if he makes the 53, or if he's or next year if he spends this year on the practice squad or ends up somewhere else. But I liked him at Tulane, and I thought he had a lot of translatable traits. So I mean, now it's all about putting your best stuff on film and contributing on special teams and make the decision tough for the coaching staff.
Andrew, of the guys who are going to play tonight, who among the secondary guys, the corners and the safeties, are squarely on the bubble right now?
Josiah Scott, I would say, but I think he's in fairly good standing because of his ability to play the nickel, which is what his size he's limited to playing the nickel. He's only 5'8", but I think having him there allows Avonte Maddox to move around and be a movable chess piece for Jonathan Gannon. You can deploy him in a number of different ways. So it's a luxury to have a guy like Josiah Scott. Also, Elijah Riley, I've mentioned him countless times on your show. I've written about him. I like that he played boundary corner at Army. His transition to safety at this level really impressed me at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Just 23 years old, good ball skills, smart guy, tough, strong tackler. And, he's cost-effective, but I also think that he can be a core special teams member for Michael Clay and sort of take over that Rudy Ford type of role. But I think that he offers a little bit more upside as a defender. So he's a guy that I think is squarely on the fringes of the roster right now. And, yeah, I sort of like his chances. He's going to be vying against veteran Andrew Adams, who has 73 games under his belt. And he's also going to be going Marcus Epps, I think, has got his spot locked in. But Elijah Riley has really taken advantage of the increased reps with Kayvon Wallace out. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that may be a dark horse to make the team.
Follow him on Twitter at @TheChecoNFL with the Eagles' final preseason game tonight. We are just days away from the first 53-man cutdowns for the 2021 NFL season this Tuesday at 4 p.m. And that's when you'll hear Andrew again, because, Andrew, you will be on this Tuesday moments after the first 53 cutdowns happen. So we'll look forward to hearing from you again then. And check out all of his coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, great stuff today. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll catch you on Tuesday.
Sounds good, Josh. Have a good weekend.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, hanging out with you on a Friday edition of the show. Of course, the 4 o'clock hour being brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. Still to come on the show, we'll be talking Phillies with Bob Wankel, Phillies reporter from Crossing Broad. Also more NFL talk with CBS Sports NFL writer Jeff Kerr coming up at 5:25 plus. It is a football Friday for yours truly here on 97.3 ESPN. I'll give you some of my thoughts on the college football season. Week 0 starts tomorrow. Some very interesting action and matchups we will get to there as well. So we got a lot still to come, and you can chime into the show. Your thoughts on the Eagles' final preseason game tonight. Phillies, complete dumpster fire, losers of 3 straight. Also the Sixers. Are they going to trade Ben Simmons? Are they not going to trade Ben Simmons? Shams Charania of The Athletic says the deal is being worked on. They're trying to get a deal done, and it might not be a good idea if he co-stars at the camp. Your thoughts on all that and more on a Happy Hour Friday edition here on the Sports Bash. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill on a Friday edition of the Sports Bash.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles finish the 2021 preseason tonight against the New York Jets.
Takes the snap. Here comes the rush. Let's go. Complete into the end zone. Touchdown, Zach Ertz.
Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 7:30. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles Station.
On some models, excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes price sales. See dealer for details. Have you seen what some dealers are now charging for new cars and used vehicles? It's outrageous. But at Bennett Chevrolet, you still pay what GM supplier employees pay for brand new Chevys. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates. That's not either or. You get both. And that can save you up to 25% off MSRP. And Bennett has 0% financing available to save you even more. Got a trade? Bennett's paying top dollar. And we mean top dollar. A minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can tow to our lot. And if it's in good shape, we'll pay more. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. And Bennett makes it so easy. No sales pressure, no negotiating, just pure joy. Because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you can see why nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet. Nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You know, New Jersey farmers work hard all year long to provide us with delicious Jersey Fresh fruits and vegetables. This is New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. When you buy Jersey Fresh, you're guaranteed that it's local and you're supporting our farmers. Stay loyal to local.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. This hour of the show being brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. And listen, I got a perfect suggestion. Prop swapping suggestion. I gave this to you guys last week, and I'm going to give it to you guys again here on a Football Friday because we are just days away from the NFL season getting underway. Just about 2 weeks from now will be the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football for the opening night. To me, an excellent prop swap idea is when you look at futures, is a beautiful way to get involved in prop swap. It's something that Mike Gill and Luke Bergani have talked about numerous times on their prop swap segments. Look at a division like the NFC East. Every team in the division has plus value. So that means, for example, if you think the Cowboys are going to win the division, $20 would net you 26. But if you think a team like the Eagles can win the division at plus 450, $20 gets you 90. Or if you think Washington at plus 260 is going to win the division, that's $52. So here's an idea for prop swappers, okay? You want to take all of those odds and put them in your favor, right? If you go to the local sports book, all right, in Atlantic City or in Pennsylvania, and then go to PropSwap and put all 4 of those tickets on the site. And that way, as teams start winning and losing games, you can take advantage of the market early in the year. What if the Cowboys start the year 3-0? What if Washington starts the year 5-1? What if the Giants go 3-3? What if the Philadelphia Eagles, they go 4-2 to start the year? PropSwap at PropSwap.com or by download the PropSwap app. You take all 4 of those odds and throw them on the site. And people are going to buy those odds because they're all plus odds. There's value with all 4 of them. And it's an easy way to prop swap. By the way, same thing in the NFC West. The 49ers are plus 190 to win the division, but the Rams are plus 200. The Seahawks are plus 280, and the Cardinals are plus 600. You take all 4 of those, throw them online. You don't think someone in maybe Arizona might be like, ooh, plus 600 for Cardinals to win the division? I'll take a little bit of that action. Of course they will. It's a beautiful way to use PropSwap. PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Still to come, we talk with Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad about the Phillies and the dumpster fire they are. Also, Football Friday picks a little bit later in the show, brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And, of course, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports at 525 here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of the Phillies lineup is out again today for tonight's game. They've lost 3 straight. They got Herrera hitting leadoff, Segura in the 2-hole, Harper 3. Gregorius now is number 4 hitter. Brad Miller at 5. Galvis at 6. Jankowski in the 7-hole. Knapp at 8 and Nola 9. So Knapp is going to catch Nola today. Jankowski is your center fielder, and Herrera stays in left. So no McCutchen in the lineup tonight. A bit of an interesting decision by the Phillies to take a guy who, no offense to Herrera, but I would assume that McCutchen has much better hitting upside than Odubel Herrera does. So unless his miss in the outfield on that one play that he had a couple of days ago is maybe a bigger deal than we realize, or maybe he needs more rest than we realize, I don't know. It's a very, very curious decision not to play McCutchen tonight. I mean, I'd feel a lot better about the lineup with McCutchen out there. It's bad enough Hoskins is pretty much done for the year, but now you got no McCutchen out there. A bit of a strange decision by the Phillies for tonight's game. So we'll talk more Phillies coming up in about 5 minutes with Bob Wenkel from Crossing Broad here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. We're broadcasting live from the Matt Black Kia studios. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday, a football Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Hope you're all staying safe out there. It sounded like it was downpouring a little bit earlier, but now it's stopped. It sounds like, at least out here where we are here with the studios over in Northfield, a lot of booms of thunder and lightning, some storm systems moving through the area. So if you are in the South Jersey area, stay safe, take your time, don't be in a rush. Weather's a little dicey out there tonight through tomorrow, according to the forecaster. So take care of yourself, be safe as we go about. All right, we'll get to more baseball coming up on the other side. Like I said, Bob Wenkel from Crossing Broad will join us next here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
It's back to school, and at Matt Blatt Kia, our math is easy. Put zero down, make zero payments for 90 days, or pay 0% financing for 60 months on every new 2022 Kia Stinger and Sportage in stock. Plus, we need your trade. We'll even buy it for cash, even if you don't buy a Kia from us. Used car values are at an all-time high. Your car may be worth more than you think. Worried about your credit? Forget it. We finance your future, not your past. All new 2021 Kia Niro EX-EV with zero due in signing and zero security deposit. Lease just $275 per month. It's basic math. Zero down, zero payments, or zero interest for 60 months.
Gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 and 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 1667 per 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity financed into new loan. Niro 36-month lease, 10,000 miles per year. Excludes taxes, title, license, and dock fee. Offers don't combine. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblackkianj.com for complete details. Expires 9/6/2021.
Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill on Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN at 4 o'clock hour, being brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the Prop Swap app today. You know, speaking of Happy Hour Friday, the Phillies are driving us all to drink at this point. I mean, this team is just, it's a dumpster fire. You've now had multiple games where you struggle scoring against the Arizona Diamondbacks of all teams. I understand it was a homecoming for Pat Gallen last night, but good grief, what a mess. So joining us right now to talk more about the state of the Phillies reporter for Crossing Broad, Bob Wankler, joins us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Bob, how you doing today?
Josh, what's up, man? How are you?
Well, I think I'm better off than the Phillies are, because the Phillies, I think, don't know who they are anymore, because I played the audio earlier. Dave Dombrowski told us over a month ago, well, you know, we can out-hit, we can out everything. You know, we have the offense to win the division. We have the offense to outdo the defense and the pitching. And now, before the ninth inning last night, that was 4 straight games, you scored 2 runs against the Diamondbacks. So I think we all were sold some wolf tickets when it comes to this offense, or were we?
Yeah, last night was concerning again. I mean, they probably would not scored, or would not have scored, I should say, last night had Arizona not played Little League defense for most of the night, in the 5th inning and in the 9th inning, the only 2 innings which the Phillies scored. Listen, you know, when Dave Dombrowski made those comments, Rhys Hoskins was healthy in the middle of the order. That has since changed, obviously. That was before Andrew McCutchen got hurt, and he has certainly not been the same player since returning from injury. Alec Boehm, when Dave Dombrowski made those comments, was in the middle of a stretch, about a 2-month stretch in which he was hitting a little over 300. Gene Segura is one of the best hitters in the National League, at least in terms of batting average. And, you know, really in the last month, all of these guys have gone into simultaneous slumps and or have had to deal with injuries, and it has completely hit the fan here now for this offense.
What can be done? Because it seems like every night Girardi is changing the lineup. Like tonight, there's no McCutchen in the lineup tonight at all, by the way. You know, it's Odubel Herrera playing left field again. So, you know, is Girardi just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping for the best at this point? Like, you know, what can be done?
Well, you know, there really isn't a ton that can be done, I think, in terms of lineup construction. You know, we've talked about Ronald Torreyes and the season that he's had and the number of big hits that he's had, but you know, the bottom line is that he's a player who has been overexposed in recent weeks, and his production has certainly waned. That being said, you know, Freddie Galvis is in there again tonight. They'll try to hope that a couple of these guys that aren't traditionally good hitters will just kind of catch fire for a couple weeks. Maybe they can snowball things together and take advantage of what remains as a vulnerable schedule, even though you wouldn't know it based on how the Phillies have played over the last 2+ weeks. But no, there's really no fix here. You know, it's the guys that are struggling just need to turn it around, and there's just no real good alternative. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think we've kind of reached the point in this season and where the Phillies have been now for the last 2-3 weeks that I don't think that we're in a solution phase anymore. Like, I don't think that you can really forward think and say, how can this be fixed? I think the reality is that this is a flawed team that had some guys that could maybe overcompensate or sort of negate those issues. But right now, it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. I mean, this team looks cooked.
So if they are cooked, is it just a deal where you just say you're trying to survive the year? Is that where we're at right now then? Or are they just like playing out the string and hoping for the best?
Yeah, this week, it kind of felt like it was like the Phillies' last gasp. You know, they come in and they have the Rays, and you kind of expect them to split with Tampa maybe, and then take 3 or 4, or perhaps even sweep Arizona. You got Zach Eflin coming back. You have Rhys Hoskins coming back. And you saw the way that he swung the bat on Sunday, and so you're feeling kind of good. Like, here it is. We've had some stumbles here lately. We slipped to 4.5 games out coming into the week, but we can make our move right now. And instead, they have 2 tough late losses to Tampa. Hoskins is out for the year. Zach Eflin's going back on the IL, and I would probably be pretty pessimistic about the likelihood that he comes back and contributes in any meaningful fashion for the remainder of the year. And so now you have Matt Moore back in the rotation again, and I just think that the way that this week is sort of played out, what you have to do now is find out. Listen. Mathematically, they're still in it. The Braves have some tough games coming here. Maybe they can put it together for a weekend, the Phillies, and cut this thing to like 3.5. I'm not saying it's the end of us talking about a wild card or an NL East possibility, but the likelihood is that in the next 2 weeks, they're probably going to fade out, and they have to figure out what they can salvage and what they have moving forward.
Bob Wangler joining us here on the Sports Bash on a Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN at Bob Wankel CB on Twitter. Bob, it's been suggested, with Hoskins out now, do they stay in-house? Do they try to take a risk on someone? Like I know, I think Maikel Franco was released, right? And Todd Frazier is hanging around out there without a job. Like, do you go out there? Do you stay in-house? I know there's only a few more days till the roster expands a little bit. What do you think the Phillies should do?
Well, what I think they should do, and Joe Girardi, and again, I'm not down there today, or I'm not down there yet, I should say, but Joe Girardi apparently told reporters pregame today that JT Realmuto will play a little bit of first base here coming down the stretch. So that means that you'll either see I'll tell you what you're going to see. You're going to see some Rafael Marchand in September. They're not putting JT Realmuto at first base so they can get Andrew Knapp more at bats. That's not the goal here. But, it's been a tough year physically, I think, for JT Realmuto. He's taken a beating behind the plate, and I think this is an opportunity to kind of give him a little bit of a breather and maybe lighten the load on his body a little bit. So you'll see JT Realmuto play some first base. You'll probably see some Rafael Marchand in September, who they really like from a defensive perspective behind the plate. And then, I think that the Phillies would be served in the next week or two coming back to Alec Bohm. We're talking about a guy that's had success at the major league level offensively. I know he's had a share of struggles this season. I think they owe it to themselves and Alec Bohm to see what he can do playing a little bit of first base over a 2-3 week period down the stretch, especially if playoff contention kind of becomes a pipe dream.
See, I'm conflicted because on one hand, I just don't want to see Alec Bohm at first base anymore. We've discussed that before. On the other hand, it's like, what do you have to lose at this point? Like, I feel like you said, like this was the last gasp this week. This was the week to maybe see something. And it just feels like this team has become an embarrassment to me, Bob. Like, I just feel like, you gave us this bill of goods. You sold us the Wolf tickets. You gave us the parade and dance. You gave us the 8-game winning streak. And then you just said, all right, we're done. And it's like, you got 2 former MVPs. We were told that JT Realmuto is the best hitting catcher in baseball. Segura's batting, .230 since the All-Star break. And it's like this team is just like completely helpless offensively. And the thing that we thought was going to be the problem was the pitching staff. The pitching is actually fine overall. It's the hitters that just can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, in that series against the Rays, you got 2 very good starts between Ranger Suarez and Zach Wheeler. I mean, yeah. I know things fell apart for Wheeler in the 9th inning, but you certainly could question whether or not he should have been out there in the first place, or if he should have been in the game as long as he was once things started to unravel in the 9th inning. But they got 2 very good starts there, and to lose both of those games was obviously crushing. So I think that what's happened here is that some of these players are playing hurt. I think some of them are just slumping. And I do think from a psychological standpoint that they know that once Atlanta caught fire the way that they did and the way the Braves started playing here, I think they realized that they were kind of climbing an uphill battle or facing an uphill battle, I should say. And I just – those good vibes from the beginning of the month, I think, are just completely gone. The momentum's gone, and I just think they know it. I think they're a team that's very aware of what has happened here and where they're headed.
I know that a lot of people wonder what happens next, right? Hoskins has this surgery, right? He's done for the year. It looks like, so what happens with him this offseason? I know we've discussed the idea of you got to pick between Hoskins and Bohm. Well, now Hoskins is getting surgery, and you feel like he was really the only guy that was hitting at times for this team. He was batting .247, but he was leading the team in RBI. Are you inclined more to keep Hoskins heading into this offseason now?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that the DH is going to come into play, so I don't know that the Phillies are necessarily committed to an either-or scenario between Alec Bohm and Rhys Hoskins. But, we've talked about it a few times, and I've said, hey, how do you change this team's DNA? How do you change the core of this team? It hasn't worked out here now with two different managers over a number of years. So what do? And Rhys Hoskins, you can make an argument outside of Bryce Harper. Rhys Hoskins, when he was on the field this season, at least offensively, was probably one of the very few bright spots. So, saying, hey, trade Rhys Hoskins or move on from Rhys Hoskins seems kind of silly, but you do wonder, how is he viewed around the league? And, are there teams that would be willing to acquire him and pay a fairly decent package for him? And, you could reshape your roster and reshape the identity of your team a little bit. Fans don't want to hear that because he's a good player and he's seemingly a great guy and a clubhouse leader. But you do just have to wonder, sometimes you have to do things that hurt a little bit, that are a little bit uncomfortable in order to get to where you want to go. And I do wonder if the Phillies kind of take a step back after the season and realize we're not a tweak away. We're not one player away. We're not Byron Buxton away or one of these elite level shortstops. Or maybe they assess this and they feel that they really can patch. A couple guys underperformed here this year. They ran into some bad luck. And now that Ranger Suarez in the rotation, Kyle Gibson's here for a full season next year. Maybe this all comes together and they want to, push it and go one more time with the core group that they have. There's no obvious answer, though. When things don't go well and you miss the postseason, or you probably will miss the postseason, you want to feel like that there's an obvious solution in place that they can take in order to get to that next step. And right now, it's really hard to see through all of this.
At the end of the day, we're getting close to the football season. The fans are going to start losing more and more interest in the Phillies. I mean, are they going to be able to get 20,000 people in the building in September? Like, I feel like the fan base has just been completely just deflated.
Yeah, when you take a look at the way that they've drawn post the New York series, after the New York series, it's been light. I mean, they announced 25,000 here. That was theoretically, during a stretch in which they had serious or legitimate playoff aspirations. They really just never were able to consistently break that 30,000 barrier. You get into September, kids go back to school. They seem to be trending towards irrelevance. 20,000 is going to be tough, I think, for them in September. And, listen, stranger things have happened. It's still a weak spot in the schedule. They have 3 more with Arizona. They go to Miami, who they've had some success with here this season. And then they play just a god-awful Nationals team after that. So, could the Phillies string together a 6-3 stretch and Atlanta go 3-6 or 4-5 in their next couple games, and the Phillies get this thing down to 2.5 or 3.5 games in September? Yes. I wouldn't be stunned by it, but it just is. It feels hard when you look at the fact that they have 35 games left. Are they going to be able to run down this Atlanta team and cut 6 games out? It's just hard to see it.
He's Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad at Bob Wankel CB on Twitter. Follow him for all the Phillies coverage, as the Phillies are limping into the months of September at this point, because Bob, at this point, I got college football on the slate tomorrow. Eagles cut down day is Tuesday. Huge college football weekend next weekend. And then the NFL is here, and the Phillies will just be putting away. And I'm just looking at the Phillies, and I'm like, man, I feel like I've lost my month of August at this point.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. If you're looking for a positive, at least the Phillies were able to bring you to the college football season. So we've arrived there.
Did they bring me to the college football season, or did they crash and burn at the finish line, which happens to be the college football season?
That's probably the more accurate way to describe it.
By the way, real quick, have you ever seen the movie The Rundown?
I haven't. No, I have not.
So the reason I brought it up is because we've been having the thunder and lightning outside. And like the booms are so loud at times, I hear it through my headset while I'm talking to you guys. Like it's pretty intense out there at times. And there's these random scattered thunderstorms passing through. And the reason I brought it up is because there's a scene in the movie. The movie it's a fun, campy movie. It's the early days of Dwayne Johnson. Sean William Scott is in it. The villain is Christopher Walken is the villain in the movie. It's a very, also Rosario Dawson's in the movie. It's a very fun, campy movie, but there's a scene in there where where Sean William Scott's character is pretending like he's going to fight The Rock, right? And he says, have you met my friend Mr. Thunder and my friend Mr. Lightning? And Rock just like gives him a look like, what is wrong with this dude? He just punches him in the face. So I've been hearing the Thunder so long. For some reason that movie came into my mind. So I'm just curious if I'm the only person.
Stay safe down there then, I mean, we're kind of dodging it right now for the most part where I'm at, but it doesn't look great outside. So
it's downpouring up at MetLife right now. So
okay. Keep those starters off the field.
All right, Bob, have a good one.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, the rundown. Am I the only person who's seen this movie? If anybody out there has seen this movie, let me know. Text 609-403-0973, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Message in. We're on YouTube and Twitter. You can watch the show, join the conversation. Am I the only person who's seen the rundown? Dwayne Johnson, Sean William Scott, Christopher Walken, Rosario Dawson. I know it's the most random cast ever. It was like from 2003, I think. I can't be the only person who's seen this movie. At Josh Hennig on Twitter. Let me know. All right, still to come, more football talk. I'll give you some football picks for the weekend. Also, we'll get you more latest NFL news. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, joins us at 5:25. All that and more still to come on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Friday edition of the Bash.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schweim. Scott McKay joins me in the studio as we talk Phillies baseball. With Rhys Hoskins being done for the season, what's that mean for the Phils? We'll talk with former Phillies relief pitcher Scott Air about the dog days of summer. The Eagles play their final preseason game Friday night against the Jets. We'll recap all the action. It's the locker room with Billy Schweim Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
you support your local small businesses, it helps keep your neighbors employed, helps kids save for college, and strengthens your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts local businesses in the spotlight.
First Bank of Sea Isle City, Cape May County's community bank.
Dr. Lyle M. Back for everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelylback.com.
Egg Harbor Independent Branch Leader at Charles Schwab in the Consumer Square Shopping Plaza.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. Visit fillingmarble.com.
Intuitive Women's Health in Summers Point, accepting new patients. Schedule an appointment today online at intuitivewomenshealth.net.
East Coast Roofing, Siding and Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media South Jersey.
A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Simmons pokes it away, steals it, sidesteps him and jams a two-hand throwdown.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City.
Josh Hennig here, 5 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. You join the conversation as always at 609-403-0973. Direct messaging available through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on YouTube and Twitter. Watch the show, join the conversation at 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online at mattblattnissan.com. Coming up, 5:25 tonight, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, will join the show. Also, I'll give you some football picks for the weekend. Not a huge slate in college football, but enough to whet your appetite this weekend. Phillies are still a dumpster fire. They are a complete embarrassment. They're a joke. They're pathetic. They're back in action tonight because, Nova Cutchin's going to solve all your problems. Ay. I mean, what a joke. It's an embarrassment. So, a lot to get to you here on 97.3 ESPN. Also, for those who didn't hear, the Ben Simmons rumor mill continues. Okay, Shams Charania of The Athletic reported to Stadium and Valley Sports that the Sixers are still working on trying to trade Ben Simmons. The Timberwolves are one of the teams that's still most interested in acquiring Ben Simmons. So, as much as things change, some things just stay the same, it seems like. So, definitely a bit of a aggravating situation. As I said earlier in the show, I don't know what I'm more aggravated with. Am I more aggravated with the Phillies unable to score consistently, or am I more aggravated with the Sixers Ben Simmons drama? I don't know what I'm more aggravated with. And I know it's been a discussion point throughout the show about trading Ben Simmons, about the Eagles final preseason game tonight. So we got some messages to get to as well from a little bit earlier in the show. You will get to this hour here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. Also, a little bit later this hour, I'll give you a little review, a little further thoughts on. I put the list up at 97.3ESPN.com. So I'm trying to do a series a little bit, trying to highlight some of the local businesses in South Jersey. Obviously this time of year, coming off of the pandemic from last year, things are not very easy for a lot of people. And it's football season. You know how much I love watching football. You know how much I love, consuming football. So some great establishments for you to check out for football season. The full list of Atlantic County bars to watch football at this season is right now at 97.3ESPN.com and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. If I missed anybody, if I forgot somebody, let me know. You can comment on Twitter at 973ESPN, at Josh Hennig on Twitter. So, or you can just respond on the text board when we read off the list a little bit later. Of course, if you have the 973 ESPN mobile app, you would have gotten the alert with the Ben Simmons news, with the list of establishments you can patronize, spend your money with this football season. So all that over on the 973 ESPN mobile app at 973ESPN.com. As I drop my phone, thank goodness I have a case on that thing. All right. Couple messages I want to get to. Jeff Bonapookie over on the Twitter stream. We talked about the tight ends a little bit earlier when it comes to the Eagles. Obviously, there's a conversation out there of, do they keep Zach Ertz? Do they move on from Zach Ertz? What happens if they keep Zach Ertz? A lot of different variables that go into this. Well, Jeff Bonapookie chimes in and says, the Eagles can use our tight ends in packages, tight end slot, twin tight end sets. If we play both tight ends in the red zone, our matchups will be a nightmare for opposing defenses. Jeff goes on to say, I wonder if any of our tight ends are going to play a little fullback during goal line situations. Nick Sirianni can play this in so many ways with our tight ends. I don't know about fullback on goal line, but what I do think they can do, Jeff, is I think what they can do is they can run a pony package where instead of having both running backs on each side of the quarterback, maybe it's Ertz or Goddard as one of the backs next to the quarterback, and then they can split either the running back or the tight end out in the formation into the slot. So I don't know about fullback, but you are right. There's a lot of ways the Eagles could use the tight ends, and I have the feeling that they would be more creative with Nick Sirianni than with Doug Peterson. No offense to Doug, but Doug was stagnant. Okay, Doug was a guy who was very predictable. All right. I'm not hating on Doug Peterson per se. I just tend to think that, all right, let me put it this way. I believe, in my personal opinion, that Doug Peterson's offense got stale and predictable. He lacked the desire to get past being stubborn and hard-headed. He had trouble getting past this desire that he had the perfect play. He had the right play. And as I mentioned before, I think Doug Peterson became so obsessed with being a play caller and not being a head coach. That was the beginning of the end for him. He said in multiple press conferences, he loved play calling. He enjoyed developing a game plan. He loved that stuff. But I think he loved it so much, he got away from his real job, which was being head coach. The job of a head coach is to be the CEO of the football team. You got to manage the coaches. You got to manage the players. You got to manage the locker room. You got to manage the situation. And it just seemed like Doug had no interest in doing that at times. And he was so obsessed with having this great game plan, having these great play calls, that he was so stuck in this, well, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, that he had no creativity beyond that. He had no desire to expand his mind. You know, there were a lot of reports that Doug, the reason why he wanted guys like Press Taylor around was because he was comfortable with them. Is there a possibility that maybe Frank Reich and John DeFilippo like to challenge him, like to push Doug outside of his comfort zone, and that Doug wasn't happy with doing that anymore? So when you look at Sirianni, I look at it and say, look, I expect a little more creativity. I expect a little bit more diversity when it comes to the offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of different things when it came to the tight ends in this offense. Because to me, I tend to believe that Sirianni and Shane Steichen both come from backgrounds that, you know, tend to add to their ability to be a little bit less stubborn. Look at Shane Steichen's background. Look, he helped make Justin Herbert last year. You know, everyone is assuming that Justin Herbert is going to have this amazing season. But he's a first-year offense coordinator this year, new coordinator. So this is now 3 straight years, like Jalen Hurts, that Justin Herbert has a different offensive coordinator to learn. And I understand that, Joe Lombardi's from the Saints. He's bringing in that Sean Payton offense. But Shane Steichen put Justin Herbert in a great position last year to be successful. So you're bringing that guy to Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni was on a coaching staff for the last 3 years that worked with Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, and Andrew Luck. That means they had to have success with 3 completely different quarterbacks in terms of mentality, in terms of skill set, in terms of what they're good and bad at. So I tend to believe that Sirianni and this coaching staff are going to be more diverse, more flexible, more creative, and more imaginative than what we saw from Doug Peterson last year. So I agree with Jeff Bone and Pookie that the tight ends will be a part of this as long as Zach Ertz is still here, which is at this moment it seems like he will be. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Tom from the Village chimes in and says, Josh, tonight's happy hour Friday. I'll be drinking Sam Adams Oktoberfest and some proper 12 Irish whiskey. All right, Tom. So you're already going Oktoberfest? I mean, it's not even Labor Day weekend yet. You're already flipping over to October? Wow. That's a jump. Proper 12 Irish whiskey. Now, let's have a conversation with that for a hot second here on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. I understand that that's a whiskey that basically became popular because of Conor McGregor, okay? And he made a ton of money selling his majority shares in that. So more power to him. I am not a whiskey guy, okay? Whiskey is not my go-to, but I've had proper 12 on a couple of occasions. I don't hate it. I don't think it's horrible in terms of types of whiskey out there, but I've had some people say that they hate it and they're whiskey people. I've had people tell me they love it and they're also whiskey people. There seems to be no in between for the whiskey drinkers out there. Either you like it or you don't like it. Now, again, I'm not a whiskey person, so to me, I thought it was fine. I didn't love it or hate it, but I'm not the person to ask because, again, I'm not a whiskey person. So, Tom for the Villas, follow up with me and let me know. Is proper like your favorite whiskey? Is proper 12 one of the whiskeys you like? I'm just curious of how you put that. Now, Tom for the Villas chimes in also and says, why do we just have Atlantic County? What about us poor schlubs down here in Cape May County? So we had somebody who commented to us on Twitter about this as well. The Cape May County list is coming. Okay. I am one man saving the world right now. All right. Mike Gill's on vacation. There's literally 2 of us who work here. Okay. And that's it. So please, patience. Okay. Patience, my friend. All right. The Cape May County list is coming, but one at a time. I was able to get down the Atlantic County list more quickly, shall I say, than the Cape May County list. The Cape May County list is a little more complicated for a variety of reasons because, there's things you have to factor in when it comes to Cape May County, right? I try to make the list. If you go through the Atlantic County list, you see I try to hit on multiple different types of establishments, okay? That was kind of one of my goals with that list. So Cape May County is going to be the same thing. I'm trying to hit on a multitude of different establishments in Cape May County. So the Cape May County list of bars to watch football at for the football season is coming probably at some point next week. So that's why it's only Atlantic County right now. I'm doing each county separately because I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want anyone to get lost in translation because also, both counties offer a different style as well when it comes to what they bring to the table. Okay. Just to use as an example of 2 establishments in different counties, one of the establishments I mentioned in my post today that is, for lack of a better term, very different than what you would find down in Cape May County is, there it is, the West End Grill and Bar in Hamilton, okay? That's one of the establishments I put on the list, all right? And you can check out the full list right now on 973ESPN.com. the look of it outside and inside is very different than see anything in Cape May County. There is nothing like this in Cape May County. There's a handful of places that are a little similar to this in Atlantic County, all right? But in terms of Cape May County, this thing is extremely unique, all right? Because on the outside, it looks nothing like you would think. It looks like it was either, somebody's home, or it may have been a bed and breakfast at some point, okay? From the outside, if you've never been in there, you would know that when you go inside, it's got a little history of the place, and it's got an awesome feel to it. It's very different on the inside. It's very unique. You don't see something like this in Cape May County, whereas you have an establishment like, for example, the West Side Saloon in West Wildwood, right? That is also a place that looks different on the outside than it is on the inside, for sure. But I'm not going to sit here and act like they're one and the same. I can't put them on the same list. So Atlantic County gets their own list. Cape May County gets their own list. So Tom and the Villas, that's why. Now, Tom followed up with the whiskey or with the alcohol and says, I switched over to the Oktoberfest because it's my favorite beer, and I only get it for 2 months. This is my first time trying Proper 12, so I'll let you know. All right, Tom and the Villas. I'm covering for Mike Gill next week. I need your feedback next week on the Proper 12 because I've heard a lot of different perspectives on this Proper 12. All right. Some people love it. Some people hate it. So I expect a report back from you. That's your homework for the weekend, Tom from the Villas. I need a report on the Proper whiskey next week. Okay. And by the way, I'm not dissing your Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest by Sam Adams is a very pleasant beer to have. It's just I'm surprised you're having it this early in the year. But considering it's your favorite beer, I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, you want to get it while you can, while supplies last, kind of deal. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to more of your messages in just a bit. I played this earlier in the show, and I'm going to get to Glenn EHT's follow-up text about it because we talked about Ben Simmons in this situation when it comes to him being traded. Now, we're going to find out if I queued this up properly because the audio for the Shams Charania segment on Stadium that was distributed by Bally Sports that gives a full report because he didn't report this on a tweet. He reported this in, kind of like, verbal form on this show. So I'm going to see if I can get this queued up properly here for you guys.
So what's the latest on this Simmons situation in Philadelphia, especially with his future with the team as we get closer and closer to training camp?
Yeah, Cam, both sides want the same thing, which is a trade of Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia.
Now, let's start with there. Both sides want this trade, says Shams Charania. Now, Shams, as you know, it's Shams versus Woj. So this is one of the preeminent insiders in the NBA. Basically laying out for you what we've been telling you guys for a week. So here's more from him.
We've seen that kind of develop as the year's gone on. This whole season, he was offered up in those James Harden talks during the course of the regular season. That obviously did not happen. And then the flame out that occurred in the playoffs, really for the entire team. But the spotlight was really shined on Ben Simmons. And you saw Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid shine that light on Ben Simmons. And now, the Sixers started conversations a few weeks before the draft with teams on trying to figure out which offer might be the best. I think they made some headway with some teams, but at the end of the day, they don't have a deal done. I'm told they're continuing to talk to teams. Minnesota's one of the most interesting.
All right, hold on. So they're continuing to talk to teams. They haven't gotten the trade done they wanted yet. And also he mentioned that he was offered in the Harden deal. So those are some details you got to keep in mind with all of this. This is not just a reaction to the year that he had. This is an overall situation going on. This is an ongoing fluid situation. So I rewound this a little bit. Let's get back to Shams here.
Don't have a deal done. I'm told they're continuing to talk to teams. Minnesota's one of the most interested teams in Ben Simmons, but a package with them would require a third team, and those deals aren't easy. So what I would expect is a climax to this situation to occur closer to the start of training camp because that's when there's going to be pressure. Are you going to want to bring Ben Simmons into training camp? Are you going to want to try to get something done before camp starts? I think that's really where we're going to see all this stuff start to climax.
Okay, so I thought the point he made there at the end is incredibly important to keep in mind. Because when you look at this guy, all right, in Ben Simmons, him and his camp have not refuted any of the rumors, any of the reports out there. When Kendrick Perkins said there's a possibility he might not show up at camp, nobody refuted that. When there were reports that Ben Simmons didn't want to be in Philadelphia anymore, nobody refuted that. When there were reports out there that Sixers and Simmons both want this trade to happen, nobody in Ben Simmons' camp refuted that. Instead, the only communique we've gotten from Ben Simmons' camp has been, hey, more videos of Ben Simmons shooting threes and dunking, because we haven't seen that for every single offseason for the last 3 years. So I said it earlier in the show. I will say it again. I'm done with the drama. We got to move on. And I don't care that the Sixers want a huge haul for him or think they should get something big for him. He doesn't have the resume to necessitate that kind of deal. He has never won an MVP. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's an excellent defensive player. But he can't make free throws consistently. He doesn't shoot from the outside. His offensive skill sets are limited. So to me, I'm not, if I'm a team, I'm not giving up a ton for Ben Simmons because let's be realistic. This is not the draft. In the draft, you're drafting on potential, what you hope a guy can be. I can't trade for Ben Simmons because I'm trading for and hoping he could be something. That's just, I just can't rationalize it. Now, Glenn EHT texted in earlier in the show and said, anytime you draft or trade players, you're taking a risk or gamble with the future of the franchise. My stance on Simmons has been consistent, but the fact that he's 25 and in or approaching his prime is something that probably is valued by plenty of basketball people around the league who think they get their hands on him and they can fix him. Glenn from EHT goes on to say, for the most part, age in sports is crucial. Him being 25 and getting paid like he is big. Well, of course it is big because he's paid less than guys like Donovan Mitchell. He's paid less than Rudy Gobert. He's paid less than a lot of guys. So, yeah, there's value in there, Glenn EHT. But if I'm an NBA team, I got to tell the Sixers, make up your mind. Do you want to trade this guy or not? And if the Sixers are serious about not letting him get the camp of being a distraction and disruption and the whole story hanging over their head, they need to get a deal done. They only got a few more weeks until training camp. And I hope the deal does get done because I think the organization needs to move on. And as far as I'm concerned, the Sixers will never win a championship as long as Ben Simmons is on this team as currently who he is. All right, we'll get back to the football coming up next. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, joins the show right here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow at 973 ESPN.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
You know, New Jersey farmers work hard all year long to provide us with delicious Jersey Fresh fruits and vegetables. This is New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. When you buy Jersey Fresh, you're guaranteed that it's local and you're supporting our farmers. Stay loyal to local.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. Happy Hour Friday, Football Friday. Yes, I'll get you some football picks for the college football weekend a little bit later. But before we get to all of that, to get more into the NFL, Eagles final preseason game is, of course, tonight. And then Tuesday is the first round of cuts for the 53-man roster. So to get more into all of that and more, joining us right now, as does every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, is Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports. Joins us live on YouTube and Twitter. Again, the more all of that. Jeff, how are you doing today?
You know what, Josh? I'm doing pretty good because it's the Eagles' last preseason game, and I get to see my alma mater play football tonight. High school football is back. I can't be more excited.
Well, we actually got a 3-day slew of games going on in Ocean City, which is about 15 minutes from the studio. Obviously been interrupted by some of the rain and stuff going on, but I've been told the plan is they're just going to pause the games and then restart them up when the rain goes away. So, but by the way, for those who don't know, in other parts of the country, last week and this week is when high school football starts. It's only in the Northeast that we're like, oh, it has to be around Labor Day weekend. Like, I never understood that. Like, why does the Northeast think they're so much different than the rest of the country?
My dad actually said to me today, because back when he played, which was the 70s, they started in like mid-September-ish, and he tells me all the time, it's too early, it's too early. They end the season too early, they start the season too early. I'm like, well, Dad, they got district playoffs now. He goes, who cares about district playoffs? Back then, that was a different time. It was they only cared about playing on Thanksgiving and winning. The district playoffs was a foreign commodity.
That is true. The traditional history of the Thanksgiving Day game is a big deal in this part of the country, whereas other parts of the country, they care about winning championships.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Like, when we went to district playoffs, when I went to Ding and Boone, we were the first team to ever go to the district playoffs. Because Ding and Boone does not have a rich football history until my class showed up. And everybody's like, district playoffs? What's that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. You guys win like 2-3 games every year, Now we win 8 or 9. So, and then they couldn't understand, like, when we lost, it was over. I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. It's, you're playing. Oh, why do we got to play a good team in the playoffs? I'm like, because we won 9 games and they won 9 games. That's usually how it works. Only the good teams make the play. Now they watered it down. Now everybody makes it.
Well, Jeff, let's get to the pro football game right now. And listen, we're not going to get into the game tonight as much because let's be realistic. Nobody's playing tonight. And Jason Kelsey's running around in the rain on the field.
Yeah, he's doing what's he doing? Slides on like the grass or whatever he's doing. The turf. I don't even know what he was doing today.
He's out there having a good time. So let's just put it that way. So if that's how Jason Kelsey feels about the game tonight, we're just going to move on to what's really important, which is, Jeff, the first round of 53 cuts is this Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I want to know from you about a couple specific players and situations, because we all have an idea who the starters are. We know who's going to be on this team for the most part, right? But there's a couple of guys that we're not really sure about. And I want to start with the final wide receiver spot. This Fulgham versus J-Jaw situation is fascinating to me because I feel like an argument can be made for both guys. They both could play special teams, which they have shown in the preseason, right? They both are big athletes, which we know they are, but they both have these incredible demerits against them that it's hard to wrap your head around how these guys can be this talented and still be this, shall I say, unpredictable.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting debate for sure. And look, I've said on record, I am tired of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. If he makes this team, so be it. I mean, honestly, you're just picking which trash at this point you want to keep. It's, Travis Fulgham, I'm more than willing to give another shot, even though he really doesn't deserve it, because at least I've seen some degree of success from this guy. This guy does have talent. It's almost like back when the Eagles had Chris T. Jones and they hung on to him for a little longer than they should, because you saw the success from him. It's the same with Travis Fulgham. I think Travis Fulgham has the potential to break out in the game. I don't think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is ever going to have that. I just think you got to cut your losses a little bit, and I think Howie Roseman is willing to do that. But it's going to come down to who plays better on special teams. That's one thing I am watching for tonight, Josh, so I'm glad you pointed that out. And look, I think Greg Ward makes this team. I'm not sure about Fulgham or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. They're probably the same player at this point based on how they played in camp, but I'm going on the guy who's had some success, so I'll go Fulgham. And I'll be honest, Josh, I think they only keep 5 wide receivers. I think they try to get somebody else.
Now, you mentioned get somebody else. How does that potentially get somebody else impacted by what happens with Zach Ertz?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. Now, for the record, I think they should keep Zach Ertz. I think they should still add a veteran receiver for my apologies there. For depth.
Jeff Kerr over there is still with us.
Yeah, I'm still alive, everybody. So
that's good.
Yeah. So basically, they need depth at a lot of positions. This isn't just wide receiver. Wide receiver is one, but outside of tight end, and running back and defensive line, they need depth at a lot of positions here. And so I'm looking at it as, okay, you keep Zach Ertz around. I don't know if there's going to be any veterans right now that's available at wide receiver. After the cut down, we'll see what happens, because obviously guys have contract disputes and things like that happen. And guys you don't expect to get cut. But they could go to trade route, and that's where I think the Zach Ertz stuff comes in. I don't think you trade Zach Ertz for a wide receiver. I think you trade, and they won't trade draft picks. I think you got to do a player-for-player swap somewhere. Someone who deserves to play but just can't on this team. The thing is, who do you give up? Because they do have a lot of good young linebackers, but I don't think I'd part with one of them. Defensive line, maybe Derek Barnett becomes available. But again, I kind of like the Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Ryan Kerrigan thing. I don't think you should mess with that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. It's a shame Kerryon Johnson actually got hurt because I think you could have used him in trade bait, quite honestly, Josh. But overall, it's going to be tough. I think they got to hope for someone to get cut on the 53-man cut down day on Tuesday.
Let's go to another guy that's been in trade rumors. What about Andre Dillard? Does he get traded or should they keep him on the 53?
I don't know who would want him at this point. Like, I get you can get a draft pick for him, maybe a 6th or 7th round pick, but overall, wouldn't you just be better off hanging on to him? And, in case Jordan Mailata gets hurt, then maybe he can develop. So that's one thing how can I put it in words? I'm not against them getting rid of him. I'll say that. But I think overall you should keep him. And Brett Toth deserves to make this team. That's a guy I feel like should make the team. Can he play right tackle? I think they should try to find that out tonight because he's done a heck of a job at left tackle so far in this preseason. It doesn't look like it because the offense has been terrible, but if you watch the game film, Brett Toth has definitely done a really good job for them. So I think Toth should probably make the roster. It's just, will it be at the expense of Andre Dillard? I don't think the Eagles are ready to get rid of a first-round pick yet unless they can get a high day 3 pick for him at this point.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, at Jeff Kerr, CBS on Twitter. Jeff, let's move over to the defense now. I'm very curious to find out what this team does in the secondary because Rodney McLeod probably is not starting this year, right? And Kevon Wallace is injured too, by the way. We don't know what the heck his status is going to be for the season. So you may have to keep some safeties on this team or at least close by in order to at least get you through a week or two. And those names include guys like Marcus Epps, who's actually played all right overall. And you have guys out there like Elijah Riley. You have Adams, the guy from Tampa they brought in. What is your perspective on the safety situation?
I was going to say, thank God they have Marcus Epps because Marcus Epps isn't a bad football player. He's one of those guys. He can get you through a week. So it's good that – and look, Josh, I think he was going to make this roster regardless, but it's nice to have him. He may have to start week 1. That's just the reality of the situation. And you just got to hope Rodney McLeod is back by week 2 or week 3. He doesn't miss a lot of time. What I'm concerned about is – you're right. Outside of that, Andrew Adams, obviously depth. He's a good special teamer. So we'll probably make the roster. But you might have to look at the waiver wire, too. Maybe you have to get a veteran in there. I know the Texans had one of their safeties available. I gotta go through all my NFL news here. But I know the Texans are going to have a couple players. But I think it was Lonnie Johnson. That would be a nice little pickup for them. Someone who could get them through and give Rodney McLeod some time. But, again, I think you're going to have to look at the waiver wire for this and over the next couple days because you definitely can get guys that can fill in, especially in this scheme. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens. But you're right. Like, depth at safety is an issue. And I didn't think it was going to be at first. But we were all back on Rodney McLeod coming back week 1, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
When do we expect? Do we even have any information about Rodney McLeod's progress? I feel like that's been one of the few things we actually have no idea about.
I honestly think we're going to find out more about the San Francisco 49ers plans with Trey Lance before we find out anything on Rodney McLeod. That's how secretive the Eagles have been at this point. And, yeah, it's really weird. Like, Rodney McLeod says he'll be ready by week 1. That's great. Players tell me stuff all the time. Kyler Murray told me last year his knee wasn't bothering him, and everybody else told me it was. So, take that with a grain of salt. So I don't know, Josh. It's going to be interesting. And again, it's like on the injury report because he's on the PUP list right now. As far as I know, I don't think they moved him off it. Maybe one of our viewers can correct me on that. But right now, it's pretty much. I think you just got to get him off that list and on the 53, and then we'll see what happens. Personally, I think he's week to week at this point. But again, this is the beauty of having only 3 preseason games. The regular season doesn't start now for 16 more days. So they got time here.
Oh, they definitely have time, but they got to figure some things out before Tuesday.
Yeah,
and
that's the issue.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say, and that is, with everything we just said, we know there's a reason why they've been people are trying to call it now the fluid 53, because whatever 53 is on Tuesday at 4 p.m. probably won't be the same 53 that shows up before the actual game 1 of the season. So what are some of the things that you want to remind the listeners to keep an eye on starting after the game on Friday through Tuesday and Wednesday next week?
Well, definitely look out for who the Eagles get on their practice squad, because they're going to be guys I have a feeling they're going to be bumping up and down. And again, you can have expanded practice squads again this year. So, look for guys that play well tonight if you're really interested in watching the game. Like Elijah Riley would be one. Stoll, the tight end, he'd be another one I would be interested in. I think he finds a way on the practice squad somehow, some way. And, I'm personally rooting for Kerry Angeline because I covered him when he played at Downingtown, and he has a shot to potentially make the Eagles practice squad. Not that he's going to make the 53 or anything, but that's some. And I'll tell you what, if you really want to watch them this week, watch the other quarterbacks around the NFL, because I don't think the 3 quarterbacks the Eagles have are going to be their 3 quarterbacks come week 1. I have a feeling that they could move on from Nick Mullins and try to get somebody better. And remember, they did this a couple of years ago. Who was it? It was Matt McGloin, and the Eagles got rid of him, and they were able to get Nate Sudfeld. So, again, something to look out for.
It's interesting you say that, because after the last preseason game, people were texting in saying, get rid of Nick Mullins. I hate this guy. And I was explaining, you guys got to remember, this guy had elbow surgery. Yeah. So he's probably not even 100% at this point. So honestly, they probably could have gotten rid of him. The guy that I was thinking about maybe they could have brought in for at least a 1 gamer was Josh Rosen. Just to tell Josh Rosen, go out there, chuck it around, let's see what happens. Instead, Atlanta picks him up, and it looks like he's going to be the backup in Atlanta, which honestly might be the best scenario for his career at this point, because for a guy who had all this promise coming out of college, he got to a dumpster fire in Arizona. He got dumped by Arizona because of Kingsbury, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes to Miami, where they were on the first of 4 offensive coordinators, because they have 2 co-coordinators this year. So to me, that's 4 coordinators in 3 years for Brian Flores. Then he gets shipped out. He goes to Tampa's practice squad, San Francisco. Now with Arthur Smith in Atlanta. You could argue that this is the thing that might save Rosen's career, is being in Atlanta.
And it was an offer he couldn't refuse. Literally, immediately once A.J. McCarron got hurt and was done for the year, they called him up, and he immediately signed. They knew who they wanted. And again, if Matt Ryan somehow gets hurt, Josh Rosen's the guy right now. And that'd be a real shame for the Falcons, throwing him into the fire like that, because I think they want to develop him. But you're right, Josh. That is an incredible opportunity for him, because I'm sure Josh Rosen was thinking, oh, man, what am I going to do now? Does anybody want me at this point? I've been on practice squad. And he would have probably ended up on their team's practice squad. But you begin to wonder, you're Josh Rosen, and then this golden opportunity comes, unfortunately, for A.J. McCarron, that he got hurt. But, and again, I don't blame you, Josh. I think I would have signed him just to say, hey, you know what? We're going to waste this preseason game anyway. Just work out. We'll throw the ball around. We'll sling it around, and, we'll get you some tape, and, we'll see if we keep you or not. If not, we'll leave you on our practice squad. Maybe we'll develop you, or maybe someone else will sign you. So you're right, Josh. It was just a perfect scenario for Josh Rosen. And again, I think the 49ers did him a real favor by cutting him in favor of Nate Sudfeld as early as they did.
Jameis Winston is the starter in New Orleans. They finally made the announcement. I'm talking about your journey for this guy. Remember the crab legs at Florida State, all the weird stuff with him, comes to the NFL, all the arm talent in the world, but his head wasn't there, goes to New Orleans, pays his dues. Now he's going to be the starter, and you could argue that if anyone's going to succeed Drew Brees, it might as well be Jameis, because you know what? Risk it and biscuit, right?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And this is an interesting thing about Jameis Winston. I was never for or against him. He was always weird to me. I always saw the amount of potential, but the turnovers just were they were so head-scratching, especially in today's NFL. 7 pick sixes in a year. That's an NFL record. First guy with 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, which is honestly incredible. He was able to throw that much. And I think the Saints had to make this move. I just think they knew they could not win with Taysom Hill. And Jameis Winston, that preseason game, he looked pretty good going to Cowboy there on 2 of those touchdowns. I mean, Jameis Winston, this whole offseason, from what I've been hearing, he's looked pretty good and looked like he's had command of the offense, had a full offseason with this team, has had full support. And honestly, as an Alvin Kamara fantasy owner, I'm ecstatic. So that's another. But I think if you make Jameis Winston, maybe not the no risk it, no biscuit guy, like I don't think he has to be the guy who throws the ball 40 times a game anymore, although sometimes he will have to do that. But I think if you can manage his throws a little bit and kind of eliminate the possibility of him beating himself, I think the Saints can be a decent football team with him. It's fine. I expected the Saints to drop off anyway, regardless of who their quarterback was. But I think Jameis Winston, if he can show that talent, that number 1 overall pick potential, remember, he's still really young. He has a chance to stick around here. And I think he knows this is his last opportunity to be a starter in this league.
Couple more before I let you go, Jeff. Any concerns in Indianapolis? Quentin Nelson has the foot injury. Now he's on the COVID list. Eric Fisher on the COVID list. Fisher also dealing with some injuries in camp. Any concerns about Indianapolis' offensive line?
I don't think Quentin Nelson's going to be ready for week 1. I just think the time on the COVID list and all the time he needs to get ramped back up. I mean, I'd be shocked if he played week 1, quite honestly, Josh. I mean, I think Carson Wentz has a better chance with that. And, it's funny. Like, I still think Carson Wentz is rushing it. I don't think he should be out there week 1 either. I think he should give it another week. Just give it a week, like a week or two. It's fine. Like, at the end of the day, it's about your long-term health, not about getting out there and trying to prove something to people that already believe in you. This is not Philadelphia here. So, yeah, again, I'm a little worried about that offensive line. Ryan Kelly was hurt too. They've been banged up. This is a banged-up football team, and it's only August. So if I was Frank Reich, I'd put all these guys in bubble wrap at this point.
Sony Michel traded to the Rams. Like it, dislike it, don't care.
I'm not a big Sony Michel fan, but I think the Rams needed him. I think it's a good move for the Rams. I actually kind of like how he fits in with the Rams. They needed someone to go in there with Darrell Henderson. They really did. Henderson's a fine running back. He cannot be the number 1 guy that whole season. And they didn't have anyone to spell. Xavier Jones wasn't getting the job done. Josh Funk wasn't getting the job done. And they're still going to be on the team. But it's just going to be Robert Calais was another one. Again, in my opinion, Josh, they needed to get somebody. And I think they decided, you know what? We don't really care about draft picks anyway. We'll give them up for Sony Michel. I like the fit in there. I think he's going to be a nice complimentary back. He's going to be really good catching the football for them. I like the move for Sony Michel and the Rams. I don't want to say I don't care because, look, the Rams are going for it. It's just I don't like Sony Michel, the player, but I like the fit in Los Angeles, if that makes sense.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter. He'll be back on Monday's edition of the Sports Bash. Talk more NFL. Jeff, have a great weekend and enjoy the sloppy preseason game tonight.
I'm taping the preseason game. I'm really curious, Josh, because I got to watch my alma mater play high school football. When I come back, I'm going to regret probably putting this game in. So we'll see.
Well, the thing about recording it is you can fast forward through the commercials.
That is true. That's one thing I like about YouTube and Game Pass. I don't have to worry about any of that. Like when I watch all the Eagles games, I only have to watch the commercials. Although I do that because commercials in the 90s are so much different than they are now.
This is very true. All right, Jeff, have a good one.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Happy Hour Friday, Football Friday. Yes, I have a couple picks for you coming up on the other side. College football begins tomorrow. I'll give you a couple picks for all of you out there on the other side. Let's try to get off 2021 football season on a winning note this weekend.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles finish the 2021 preseason tonight against the New York Jets.
Takes the snap. Here comes the rush. Let's go. Complete into the end zone. Touchdown, Tucker.
Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 7:30. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
All right, wrapping up the show, Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM. Quick message here from Dan from Tuckerton says, I think Jameis Winston will live up to his number one pick status. He was drafted to a horrible team, forced to start, and had a head coach who was pass heavy, which led him to bad numbers. Listen, I generally agree. I think he'll do better with New Orleans than he did in Tampa Bay, for sure. Couple quick picks for the college football weekend. Week 0, only a handful of games tomorrow. I'm going Illinois +7 against Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a dumpster fire, and Brett Bielema is going to change Illinois' fortunes coming from the Belichick last year. I'm going Hawaii versus UCLA under 68.5. I'm going UConn versus Fresno State under 63. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great day, everybody.